Well, good evening, everyone. We are all set to go here. Really excited to see so many students who have done all of this community service. The amount of hours is absolutely amazing. Thank you for continuing to make our community even better and for also getting to spend some time learning yourself. I wish we had a lot of more hours where we could ask you questions and hear what your experiences were, but here we are. So what we'll do is the council will come up front here and Mrs. Viljovich-Lavar, so sorry, will say the names so that I don't mess up all of your names, and then we will shake your hands and give you a little pin and be ready, and a certificate, and be ready to go.
Okay, and
right.
we are going to, I want to say thank you, Mayor Stewart and city council members. In addition to being a public school teacher for 40 years, I've been active in the schools as as a volunteer, and it's brought me immense joy. My personal experience was the inspiration for initiating the Mayor's Award for Community Service at both San Luis Obispo High School and Laguna. These programs were started years ago, and it's so wonderful to have your continued support and this of you, Mayor Stewart, and the city council members to see that this important award continues for our hardworking teens. On behalf of Laguna Middle School Principal Nathan Minert, Vice Principals Elizabeth Din and David Hawley, and the certificated and clerical staff, I would first like to thank you for honoring these caring souls. Earlier, they were presented with a certificate and community service pin and heard words of encouragement from Police Chief Scott. It is indeed a pleasure to have witnessed the metamorphosis of these dedicated teens who completed 30 hours or more. Some of them have completed over 100 hours. These volunteer hours were made possible by the nonprofits in the community that continue to welcome student volunteers and the parents that entrusted their children to other positive adult mentors in our community. Through volunteering, many of these young people have honed their interpersonal and organizational skills. In addition, they have improved their time management, critical thinking skills, and which will serve them well in the future. Also, the volunteer hours also provided them with self-confidence and hands-on experience that they may not have had a chance to experience in the classroom. The actions of these students are, in a sense, the very fibers of our strong, vital, healthy, and safe community. And with that being said, I am prepared to start announcing their names. Thank you. Okay, we are going to begin. We have our wonderful council here. Thank you. Alice Amos. Rio Ancheta Johnson. Audrey Arnold. Violet Aron. Luca Bellisano. Sky Bracco. Arden Broussard. Caleb Cortez. Sydney Brown. Ellery Devitt. Rain Escobar. Sophia Ostras. Addis Etsy. Amira Etsy. Judah Fima. Noah Frago. Theodore Frost. Cole Funk. Stella Gates. Ella Gedeke. Charlize Gersenser. Emmy Grant. Leilani Gross. Corinne Hanshu. Colson Henderson. Addison Hopple. Joseph Humphrey. Riley James. Seth Jose. Caroline Camel. Alexis Kirschner. Sophia Kwong. Connor Lewanog. Jessa Lebed. Vanessa Lopez. Bryn Maxudian. Natalia McCarley. Hunter McKiernan. Ryan McNabb. Jalila Mitchell Hirschman. John McCarran. Chase Neisnick. Madison Palmerston. Samantha Pearson. Caitlin Peterson. Nicholas Peinado. Lucy Peterson. Luis Ramirez. Annaline Rawlings. Kaylee Reynolds. Hans Regent. Natalia Rodarte. Emery Sarabia. Eva Sarabia. Julia Schroeder Heptig. Addie Schuberg. June and Willa Scott could not be here this evening, but let's give them a round of applause. Yay! Ann Song. Marley Stock. Alexis Torres. Addie? No. What you? Oh, we got you coming up. Okay, hold on. Thank you. Grace Tuttle. Madeline Volk. And Zoe Waddell. Thank you very much. Thank you. As you, yay, yay. So in closing, anthropologist Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that has." Mayor Stewart and City Council members, thank you for allowing me to acknowledge the efforts of these wonderful teens. They are our future. Their integrity, determination, passion, and compassion should give everyone great hope and optimism. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I just want the parents to know that this will be streamed on YouTube, so you can pull it down from there if you want.
I must have missed the rotation.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Erica A. Stewart, and we are calling together our regular meeting. We had some excitement earlier. The Laguna Middle School students had their community service awards today. These were students that gave 90 hours minimum back into our community through volunteer community service, which was really, really cool. So thank you to my colleagues for making that happen, and thank you for the city clerk's office for truly all of the logistics of making that happen. So we'll go ahead and start this off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Marks, will you lead us? City Attorney, will you do the report out from closed session? Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council did meet in closed session to discuss employment evaluation. That was actually the goal setting for your interim city manager, and there was no reportable action from that matter.
Thank you so much. So now we move forward to a fun part of the agenda, which is proclamations and presentations. And today we will have the Water Safety and Drowning Prevention Month, very key word right there. And we will also have the National Foster Care Month proclamation. So I'm going to start us off with the Water Safety and Drowning Awareness Month, and then present it to the Parks and Rec Department, and then you can share a few words about the water safety and prevention. So whereas the community of San Luis Obispo recognizes the vital role that swimming and aquatic-related activities can play in maintaining good physical and mental health and in enhancing the quality of life for all people. Developing physical skills related to water safety is essential to preventing drowning and water-related injuries as it prepares individuals with the knowledge and tools needed to best respond to a water-related emergency. Whereas understanding and adhering to research-proven strategies regarding water safety can save lives, including constant and capable supervision, engagement in swimming lessons for adults and children, rapid emergency response such as CPR, and restricted access to bodies of water and proper use of life jackets. The citizens of San Luis Obispo understand the essential role that educating regarding the topic of water safety plays in preparing for drowning response, drowning prevention, and recreational water-related injuries. The City of San Luis Obispo and the community at large acknowledge that drowning is a complex issue and that progress in reducing the burden and occurrence of fatal and non-fatal drowning requires diverse perspectives and approaches. During the month of May, the City of San Luis Obispo's Water Safety Campaign will engage the community through a coordinated and comprehensive safety program for drowning prevention, including the ABCs of water safety for parents and children, and the Aquatic Safety Awareness Program. Now, therefore, I, Erica A. Stewart, Mayor of the City of San Luis Obispo, on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim May 2024 as Water Safety Month and urge all community members of San Luis Obispo to participate in efforts to reduce drowning risk by preparing themselves and their families in the proper water safety response procedures that help to protect and save lives. All right.
No worries. Thank you, Madam Mayor and esteemed council members. Today, I'm excited to accept this special proclamation that hits home for many families in our community. Pools are a wonderful source of enjoyment and recreation, especially as the weather warms up. However, they also pose certain risks, particularly when it comes to the safety of our loved ones, especially children. It is important that we take a proactive stance on aquatic safety. The declaration of May as Water Safety Month will be dedicated to raising awareness, providing education, and promoting responsible behavior around aquatic areas. Water Safety Month is not just about how to learn how to swim, it's about ensuring that pool owners and caregivers are well informed about potential risk and are equipped with the tools to mitigate them. By prioritizing water safety, we are reinforcing the commitment to safeguarding our families and communities. Let's make Water Safety Month a time of education, empowerment, and action. Together, we can make a tangible difference in preventing pool-related accidents and ensuring that everyone can enjoy pools safely. I'd like to now introduce our city's aquatic coordinator, Sean Tucker, who will provide a quick introduction to the role the city has in creating a safe and inclusive environment for all community members.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members, for this proclamation. Here at the City of San Luis Obispo Parks and Recreation Department, we prefer to use the word safer instead of safe when we talk about water safety. Safe implies that you are free of danger, but water environments can never be completely free of danger, no matter how advanced of a swimmer you are. We believe that with proper swim instruction and water safety education, all swimmers can be safer around water. Here are a few of the water safety educational strategies that the Parks and Recreation Department are currently providing to the community. Year-round swim lessons, group and private, social media posts with helpful water education safety topics, early childhood education program called Learn, Swim, Grow in the H2O, a life jacket program that community members can utilize free of charge at the facility. The Parks and Recreation Department is excited to offer the community a digital educational tool / website called the Aquatic Safety Awareness Program that provides a variety of helpful tips, videos, and applications for both parents and swimmers to understand the different aspects of water safety. On the website, it covers topics like the ABCs of water safety and the top 5 most common water safety tips for pool users. It also covers different types of bodies of water like lakes, pools, spas, and beaches. So we try to cover a lot of different areas with the information for the community so they can be safe around different bodies of water. So we thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you at the pool, not only for this summer, but year-round.
Thank you so much, Sean and Devin. Really appreciate your time. So now we'll have National Foster Care Month. I will be presenting this to Aubrey Kincaid and Amanda Briley on behalf of the SLO County Department of Social Services and Child Welfare. And hopefully they will come up and share a few words as well. So whereas the city of San Luis Obispo recognizes the importance of providing children safe, healthy, and loving homes when they are unable to remain in the home of their biological family. There are more than 420,000 children in the United States in the foster care system. More than 60,000 children in California are in the foster care system. There are over 250 children, youth, and teenagers in the county of San Luis Obispo who are in the foster care system. Whereas to help these children have a healthy, loving, and stable home environment where they can thrive and feel connected to a community that cares for them, and to support the resource families that provide these critical homes, the city of San Luis Obispo is acknowledging National Foster Care Month to raise awareness about the need for more resource family homes in our county for local children, and to join other organizations to celebrate resource families in our community. Thank you. Whereas this effort, along with similar celebrations in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, will offer children the chance to live with healthy, loving, and stable resource families when they cannot live with their birth families, and encourage other dedicated individuals to make a powerful difference in the lives of a child through resource family childcare. Now, therefore, I, Erica A. Stewart, Mayor of the City of San Luis Obispo, on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim May as National Foster Care Month in the City of San Luis Obispo, and in so doing, urge all citizens to join in a national effort to raise awareness about the importance of foster care and resource family care. Thank you so much.
Good evening, City Council members, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity. The San Luis Obispo County Department of Social Services sincerely appreciates the unwavering support of the City of San Luis Obispo has shown our youth in foster care and the families who care for them. As we honor our youth and families during National Foster Care Month, we also acknowledge the tireless efforts and struggles our staff face trying to ensure that each child in care has a loving and stable home. Our county continues to face a significant deficit of home, which puts our youth in care at risk of placement instability. In an effort to increase the number of resource homes for our youth, we're launching a new recruitment campaign called the 7525 Initiative. Our goal is to develop 75 resource family homes by the end of 2025. As part of the initiative, we're specifically targeting the recruitment of 25 homes for teens, 25 homes for youth ages 6 to 12, 15 homes for youth ages 0 to 5, 7 emergency foster care homes, and 3 new shelter homes. If we are successful in achieving our goal, we will have significantly improved our agency's ability to match youth to an ideal resource family, which will increase placement stability, provide respite for existing resource homes, and ensure social workers and staff have the resources necessary to provide optimal service for those in our county's care. We ask that this council stand with us in a mutual effort to raise awareness of this initiative so that we may reach our goal and create meaningful change for our county's child welfare system. We encourage you to contact us to register for an informational session where you can ask questions, dispel myths, and learn about the process of becoming a resource home. In closing, we would like to share with you a brief video from our latest Recruitment Perspectives series, which can be found on our SLO Foster Care Facebook and YouTube pages. Thank you.
The struggles of having a deficit in resource families really impacts the kids first. Resource homes are essentially the backbone of the foster care system.
With foster care in our county, we really need parents who are willing to open their home to our kids. These are children who go to school with your children, children who are your neighbors, children who are, probably playing soccer with your kid on their team, and they don't have anywhere to go.
We're all just scared and confused, and we kind of can react in bad ways for sure, but I think it comes down to we're children and we just don't know how to act, and we need those people to teach us, and I think resource families can be those people for us.
Seeing the light and life that comes into these kids' faces when you just do the simplest things with them.
There's so many kids who are just going through bad situations or just they're not being taken care of, and these kids need help. These kids need someone that cares about them and really trusts them.
There's always something that you can give to these kids that they don't have, and being able to give them that is very rewarding.
There's a lot of support for resource parents in this county especially. No obstacle is too big to becoming a resource parent.
They're needed, more resource families to help change kids' lives. There's so many kids that need them, that need their help, and it's one of the most rewarding things that you could possibly do, is change the life of a child.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that video as well. Well, that was the fun part, and now we get back to serious stuff. We'll pass on to City Manager, Interim City Manager Whitney McDonald for her first City Manager report.
Thank you. No pressure. So we have just a few slides to highlight a number of items going on in the city currently. One, we'll start with an update on our Slow in Motion project. So we are currently wrapping up the North Trode Neighborhood Greenway project. The contractors completed slurry sealing of the greenway and striping, as well as signage work, which is underway and nearly complete. I'm sure folks are probably seeing the daily progress as they're using that roadway. It's pretty exciting. The project is expected to be completed this spring, and we're really just waiting on the underpass improvements. So the rest of the improvements are largely in place at this point in time. Pavement maintenance and mobility improvements are also continuing as part of our arterials paving project. Our contractor is continuing to work on Monterey Street with paving to follow in mid-May. Work is underway on ADA curb ramp upgrades on Santa Rosa and Palm Street as part of that project. And of course, commuters should continue to expect travel delays and lane shifts through these work areas. We do have project area maps to help clarify the areas that we're doing work in, as well as ongoing updates, and they can be found on our Slow in Motion website. We have a number of ways that we're reaching out and providing information to the community throughout construction, and so you'll find that at slowcity.org/slowinmotion, and also feel free to email us at slowinmotion@slowcity.org as well. Moving on to our parking rate study update, just a brief background. Staff and our consultant, Dixon Resources Unlimited, are working to wrap up our parking rate study. So back in November, council authorized release of an RFP to conduct this study, and at that same time reinstated the first hour free and approved free Sunday parking in the parking structures, which went into effect on November 23rd of last year. The parking rate study effort kicked off then in January, and to date, we've received over 2,700 responses to an online survey, over 140 emails and social media messages. We've also held 5 community meetings and attended 2 farmers market events. Our consultant has used the feedback from these outreach efforts and collected data from occupancy surveys to craft a series of rate options for council's consideration. We do have a special meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, the 14th, where staff and our consultant Dixon will present the findings from their study, as well as community input efforts, the occupancy survey results, financial modeling scenarios, and then, of course, some recommendations on options for council to consider for some potential rate adjustments. Any changes to on-street rates would require an ordinance to be enacted, so that is a 2-step process, and then there is a 30-day waiting period once it is adopted. So we're looking at potentially making any rate changes effective July 8th, just to give folks an idea of timing. And of course, we will have those materials published by tomorrow, so people can see what we're looking at and talking about doing on the 14th, and it'll be all-night parking conversation. So looking forward to really, making some progress on those efforts. Next up, we are highlighting this annual State of the City event. We look forward to bringing this forward on May 30th. It is free, and it's an event that the city hosts annually to provide some details on what we've been doing over the past year and how we've been serving the community. This year, we will celebrate the city's many accomplishments, provide some insights on how we've navigated a few challenges, and embraced opportunities over the past fiscal year. We will hold this event here at Council Chambers. It will also be live streamed for anyone who cannot attend. And if for further information, see slowcity.org/state of the city. We have, of course, always a lot going on in our Parks and Recreation Department, and we're highlighting now, of course, Water Safety Month in May. May is the National Aquatic Safety Month, and our Parks and Recreation staff are honored to promote a new website and programs that support water safety for our community. A variety of water safety educational programs and activities will be hosted at the SLO Swim Center, as well as educational tips and practices promoted on our webpage. So we do have the SLO Safer Swimmer Program, an aquatic safety awareness program, lifeguard training, and of course, swim lessons. Also wanted to highlight that, of course, for anybody who may be needing a reminder that Sunday is Mother's Day. And so come join us at the Jack House. The docents, in partnership with the Parks and Recreation Department, are hosting an annual Mother's Day concert from 1 to 4 p.m. Bring your lunch and snacks and a beach chair or a blanket to enjoy an afternoon at the beautiful Jack House Gardens with live music by the Frank Gehry Band, and take a tour of this historic house. Just a reminder that this is an alcohol-free event. You are with your mother, hopefully. But for more information, of course, please visit slowparksandrec.org. And finally, we do want to highlight for folks the progress and where things are at with a project that is kind of making strides toward getting off the ground. This is the Welcome Home Village project. This is a program that will enable the city and the county of San Luis Obispo to work collaboratively to address encampments along the Bob Jones Bike Trail. The county was awarded, just as a reminder of what's entailed here, they were awarded a $13.4 million encampment resolution grant from the state to resolve the encampment area along the Bob Jones Bike Trail and to build this Welcome Home Village housing community, which is really modeled on a successful model that reduces the burden that homelessness places on neighborhoods, businesses, and those experiencing homelessness. The project site is proposed to be located on the County Health Campus off of Bishop Street and Johnson Avenue. This is a shift from another site that was looked at originally on South Higuera. And so they're looking at including 34 interim supportive housing units and 46 permanent supportive housing units with the intention of providing housing and supportive wraparound services to individuals who are transitioning out of homelessness. What this project will do is really then free up space and enable our homeless shelter at 40 Prado, in addition to providing these individual units to people, really just expanding our ability to provide housing to our homeless population and help us with some of these cleanup efforts that we've been undertaking as well. Again, the goal is really getting people off of the street and into homes. Importantly, we wanted to let folks know tomorrow night we do have a planning commission scheduled here at the council chambers, and they will be discussing this project, but it's really in a limited scope. What they will be looking at is determining whether the project conforms to the city's general plan. And this is because it's a county project that's proposed on county land, and so the city's role from a land use perspective is really just making sure that it conforms to our land use requirements. The meeting will be held again here at 6 p.m. and the Planning Commission won't be getting into the merits or details of the project, but again, just looking at, does this use conform with the general plan requirements? From there, on May 21st, the County Board of Supervisors will be considering essentially approval of the project. So a number of different actions, but taking steps to move this project forward, including an agreement with a number of providers, Dignity Moves and Good Samaritan, who will be partners in both building and then operating the project, and then an agreement with the city as well. At that point, on June 4th, we anticipate bringing the subrecipient agreement forward to the City Council for approval. So those are the next steps that are anticipated for this project, really in order to meet some grant funding deadlines, but of course to also continue to help the project progress. So we wanted to make sure that people were aware of what was going on there. And with that, that's the end of my first report. Nothing is on fire, so that's good.
Great job. Thank you so much. Any questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, I have two questions. One for the aquatics team. It was mentioned that there's a new water safety website, but it wasn't mentioned what that web address is. I don't know if somebody wants to tell us what that is.
Yeah, so first time. So if you go to www.slowswimcenter.org, there's two ways to get there. There's a button that says Water Safety Hub. So it's right there on the page because that's the main driving place we want people to go about all aquatics, and they'll click on that. I believe that the actual link is www.slowcity.org Water Safety Hub, but I could be wrong with that. That was what we wanted, but best way to get there is go to the slowswimcenter.org Water Safety Hub, and it'll take you directly to that page where we have videos and all the interactive things for families to be able to use.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. That was a great question. I also thought myself, I'm going to have to go search that later. So, well, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll move forward to public comment. This is for public comment for items not on the agenda. So if you have a comment that is for the consent item or a business item, go ahead and hold that. But if you have something, please go ahead and turn in your slip of paper to the city clerk if you haven't yet. And I do want to highlight something that was brought to my attention recently. People were watching some recorded videos and they said, you know, you don't respond. None of you respond after every person speaks. It feels so weird. And it's actually, unfortunately, the nature of public comment is it is not on the agenda, so we say thank you and receive the information. Sometimes we may have a staff person respond with a little bit of information for you. So I just wanted to give that little bit of education because that is something that has been brought to my attention that it's been a while since we mentioned that. So moving forward, I'll ask City Clerk.
Yes, we have 8 speakers. The first one is Donna Pulling, and then Peggy Coton, thank you, and then Julia Albert.
Thank you.
My colleague has a prepared statement, and I would like to follow up on her, so if we could switch, I would appreciate that.
That is
Thank you.
absolutely fine. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council people. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the Green Party of San Luis Obispo County, but before I do that, I'd like to just say that my heritage is Jewish, so that's kind of an aside, but for the Green Party. I've been a member of the Green Party of San Luis County Council for over 25 years. The Green Party of San Luis Obispo asked the City Council to pass a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Dozens of cities across the United States have passed resolutions. Many of these cities are located in our great state of California. Cities such as Richmond, Pasadena, Cotati, Santa Ana, Fort Bragg, Pomona, cities are our size and larger. While we realize the city of San Luis does not have jurisdiction over international affairs, the billions of tax dollars sent to Israel is siphoning our own tax dollars from our own community to do great work like the swim center or helping the unhoused. This is why we're bringing this to your attention. The Green Party of the United States condemns the targeted attacks on civilians in the recent wave of violence in Gaza and Israel. We call for an immediate ceasefire, an immediate end to the invasion and occupation of Gaza, and a halt to all military and foreign aid to Israel. We feel that it's the responsibility of every American to call for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, to bring an end to the violence in the West Bank, as well as calling for bringing abundant aid such as food, medical supplies, drinkable water, and medical staff. We know that the members of the City Council is proud of its efforts to reduce climate change locally, making its own impact globally. If this City Council is serious about its commitment to combat climate change, then demonstrate it by acknowledging that as the war on Gaza proliferates, vast amounts of carbon is being released into the atmosphere from the horrendous destruction of the buildings and from astronomical amounts of fuel used by the military. The US military is one of the world's largest climate change enablers. Because of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the huge carbon release from this war, the Green Party of San Luis Obispo asks the City of San Luis to stand with us in calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Donna Pulling, then Julia Albert, and then Gianna Herbert.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to support the statement and inform you that what prompted us to be here this evening is the Cal Poly student demonstration. And there were inspired youth at the Cal Poly campus that were actively involved with their statement against this war. And that's what inspired us to come to you, because they are here in this community. And we thank you for giving us the time. We hope you will take this as a community-minded effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Julia Albert, Gianna Herbert, and then Cooper Leinhardt.
Hi, good evening. I'm here on behalf of the SLO County Tobacco Control Coalition. Also am a member resident of SLO and a mother of a small child, so I'm speaking on that. And I know I sent an email out, and I really appreciate all the responses we already received from both the council members and the police as well. But we're just here today to support the Public Health Club to raise some awareness related to two specific issues related to tobacco control in our community. The first being that we have noticed as are in a coalition in different retailers, tobacco retailers, that they are selling products that are actually banned at the state level and the local level. This includes flavored tobacco as well as vaping products that have not got the FDA pre-market approval. And I did speak to the lieutenant that's in charge of enforcement, and I was informed today that they're going to be doing some more retailer education. And we love to hear that, and we're hoping that there'll be sustained action, so we'll make sure that these products are not available in our community. We know that they are specifically used to target youth. The second issue that we wanted to bring forward is the fact that we do not have a multi-unit housing ordinance in SLO City to protect individuals within their housing. And by the way, if you didn't know, about 106 different jurisdictions in California do already have this exact jurisdiction, so it's not a new ordinance. So right now, we don't have anything to protect someone that is living in an apartment or a condo from smoke. They're being unwillingly exposed to smoke. And we know, I don't think I need to tell you all about the issues with smoke, secondhand smoke. We also know for landlords that they're going to bear the cost of smoking. It's pretty detrimental to housing complexes. And I also did want to mention, I forgot to mention, Morro Bay is a great example of someone who's already passed this type of ordinance. So our plan is just to reach out to different stakeholders in the community. We're not trying to ask you to immediately pass laws or give us funding. We just wanted to start bringing awareness to this issue, and we're going to be in touch because we'd really like this to be part of your work planning cycle that starts in January. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Gianna Herbert, Cooper Leinhardt, and then Jean Nelson.
Hi, my name is Gianna. I am a senior at Cal Poly, the president of the Cal Poly Public Health Club, and a SLO City resident. I have come here today to raise awareness about tobacco issues that impact Cal Poly students. We submitted a petition on two issues, which included 47 signatures from Cal Poly students and campus health and well-being staff. A recent survey of Cal Poly students found that 16% of students reported vaping and 15% reported smoking cigarettes in the last 3 months. Given the increase in percentage of students smoking, we felt it was necessary to pursue ways to achieve a healthier student community. First, we would like to point out that there has been an increased use of flavored nicotine pouches, specifically the brand Zyn, on campuses. On Cal Poly campus. We see the trash from these products on campus, and we know that using these products increases the chances of transitioning to regular cigarettes, and that these flavored products should not be available at local retailers. However, from speaking to other students, we know that these flavored products are available and that some students aren't even carded when purchasing tobacco products. Additionally, we wanted to address multi-unit housing. Many students live in complexes with shared walls. Right now, there are no local ordinances that protect students who live in apartments from being protected from secondhand smoke from cigarettes and vaping devices within their own apartments. I'm here on behalf of the Public Health Club to raise awareness about this issue and ask our City Council to consider solutions moving forward to better protect students and our community on a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cooper Leinhardt, Jean Nelson, and Robert Skinner.
Hello, my name is Cooper Leinhardt, and I'm a member of the nonprofit organization, the SLO County Beaver Brigade. And I'm also a new business owner of a local restoration business called Nature's Engineers, where we mimic beavers to restore health to our streams and rivers. I've been impressed by the city's effort to make SLO more sustainable, and I'm here to tell you about the opportunity we have to partner with beavers so that we can succeed in our sustainability goals of replenishing our water resources, storing carbon from the atmosphere, improving wildlife habitat, and also minimizing the threat of natural disasters such as wildfires, droughts, and floods. So how can beavers possibly address all these problems? Well, it all boils down to their ability to hold water on our land. So right now, most of our streams are incised and degraded, so whenever the rains come, there's nothing to slow or hold the water, and it rushes straight to the ocean. Thus, by summer, many of our streams are just a small trickle, or they're completely dry. But beavers are able to naturally reverse this process. Beaver families build a series of dams in creeks and rivers. The dams slow the water down, spreading it out and allowing it to sink into the groundwater table. Think slow it, spread it, sink it. Through this process, the beavers can turn these single-thread streams into lush wetlands where there's consistent, deeper water that's perfect habitat for many species, including steelhead trout, which is now listed as an endangered species. In fact, it's been shown that steelhead trout living in beaver habitat have a higher survival rate, and they grow up to 40% bigger, which means healthier fish populations. These wide wetlands that the beavers create are also effective fire buffers. Scientists studying this found that even during mega wildfire conditions, beaver wetlands just won't burn. So this could really benefit our own firefighters to have these natural fire breaks so they can surround and contain the fires before they spread. And as for replenishing our groundwater, beavers hold water on the landscape and underground. Each dam forces water underground, and this continual infiltration of fresh water recharges our groundwater basin and keeps us prepared for droughts. But that's not all. The dams also settle out and catch pollutants, and the water resurfaces downstream cooler and cleaner. So if you'd like to learn more, we're actually co-hosting a free event on May 18th with Cal Poly and the Morro Bay Open Space Alliance titled Bringing Beavers Back to Coastal California. You can attend virtually or in person on Cal Poly campus, and we'll provide free Woodstock's pizza. And you can sign up on our website, slowbeaverbrigade.com, and we'll be at the Farmers Market this Thursday. So thank you, and I hope to see you all there on the 18th.
Thank you so much. So much information in 3 minutes.
Jean Nelson, Robert Skinner, and then our final speaker is Cindy Blum.
Hello, SLO City Council. My name is Dr. Gene Nelson. I live in San Luis Obispo. These comments are an extension of my previous criticisms of the so-called Higuera Streets Complete project. Again, I call for abandonment of the most controversial aspect of the project, which is to block off 2 of the 4 lanes of South Higuera Street at the geographical choke point between Bridge Street and Margarita. One of the alleged benefits of blocking these 2 lanes is that it will purportedly reduce rush hour congestion at the critical Madonna-Higuera South Street intersection. This would only occur if there were alternative inbound pathways for northbound traffic to reach downtown SLO in the morning. The alternative routes are already congested. Currently, the inventory of lanes includes 2 lanes on South Higuera for northbound traffic to the Madonna Road intersection. I observed the 2 lanes of northbound 101 are already congested when I'm traveling south on 101 during the morning rush hour. Northbound Madonna Road between Los Osos Valley Road and South Higuera is congested with numerous traffic lights slowing traffic. The single-lane portions of Highway 227 are bumper to bumper during the morning rush hour. The 2-lane portion of Broad Street is choked at the north end during rush hour because all 3 roads that carry traffic away from the intersection of Broad and South Streets are now single-lane roads. Finally, Johnson Avenue has already been reduced from 4 lanes to 2 lanes along much of its length to the south of French Hospital. So the best case analysis shows a northbound lane inventory of 9 lanes, realistically 8. The Prado Road interchange will provide no benefit as it's south of the geographic choke point. With planned development south of the choke point, congestion will only get worse. Since one purpose of arterial roads is to facilitate commerce, blocking 2 lanes of South Higuera will deter commerce. That's a compelling reason to leave South Higuera Street at 4 lanes at the geographical choke point. And if I have any seconds left, I would also point out that people that live in senior citizen mobile home parks are also victims of secondhand smoke, and that smoke is much worse than that being experienced by younger people, because the older people that are addicted to cigarettes smoke much stronger tobacco, and it really is a problem. So it hits both ends of the age spectrum. So I hope you'll be acting on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Robert Skinner, and then Cindy Blum.
Good evening. My name is Robert Skinner, and I'm here to basically echo what the Green Party has been proposing. And today is May 7th. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but this May 7th means it's been 7 months since October 7th. And I think shortly right after October 7th happened, there was a ceasefire resolution that was brought forth here and elsewhere throughout the state. And at that time, there was about maybe 3,000 deaths. And maybe there was about 3,000 injured. As of today, there is 100,000 people who have been murdered, maimed, or they're missing. And if those are missing, we can assume that they are dead. This has got to stop. I mean, and the question basically is, what will be the number to make people realize this? What will be the number for the president? What will be the number for Salud Carbajal? What will be the number for you to simply come out and say, yeah, a ceasefire. All we want is a ceasefire, and let's get some aid in to help these people. Last Friday, Cindy McCain, Senator presidential candidate John McCain's wife, basically, she is in charge of the United Nations food distribution for there. She declared that northern Gaza is in a state of famine, and that state of famine is going to keep moving and moving and moving. So, I don't want to sit here and wag my finger at everybody. We have to do something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final speaker on this item is Cindy Blum.
Hello. I'm a resident in a neighborhood that's adjacent to the proposed Welcome Home Village project, sponsored by the county, and we heard a little bit about it tonight, and I'm here to just voice some concerns about the project. And I'd like to read a letter that I wrote to the Planning Commission and sent today for you. And I understand that the Planning Commission serves as in an advisory role to council, and that on June 4th, the council will be, more involved in the process. But still, at tomorrow's meeting, the Planning Commission will vote to either approve or deny the draft resolution as it conforms to the general plan. So that is something that the commission will be doing tomorrow. Anyway, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. So I'm going to just read my letter that I sent. The project number is Gen P-0175-2024. Dear San Luis Obispo Planning Commission, I've got to do this quickly. I'm writing as a resident of a neighborhood adjacent to the proposed homeless project at Johnson and Bishop Roads. First and foremost, I object to the insufficient notice that was given to residents, a lack of an inclusive process, an accelerated timetable, and the non-conformance of this project to the City of SLO's general plan. The Welcome Home Village project is inconsistent with the city's general plan because it fails to solicit meaningful community input, fails to promote the use of social services near Prado Road, fails to mitigate against spillover parking, and fails to protect the density, character, and safety of the neighborhood.
The lack of a sobriety requirement and the enforcement of a no drug, no alcohol policy are extremely problematic. Once a project resident leaves their temporary or permanent home and goes out into the county, they can abuse substances and return to the project having used them off-site. What stops them from doing this? Where might these transactions take place? On our streets, in our neighborhoods, near our children's path that they take to walk, bike, or bus to school? Will we encounter needles when we walk our dogs in the well-established areas adjacent and near to the project? Approximately half of the property is zoned R1, which was the expected use when residents purchased homes in the area. This is a residential area, so platted zoning should be adhered to and not modified or ignored. There are currently, I better go quickly, I'm going to skip over this. I'm urging the Planning Commission to either vote no or vote for a continuance of the draft resolution, which is agenda item 5B, to allow the timeline to be expanded for adequate resident input and vetting the evaluation of suitable locations that are not in residential areas.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I went over. Thank you so much.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. And the good news is we always accept emails, so you can send it to us as well as the Planning Commission. Any other public speakers?
No, that was our final speaker.
Okay, thank you so much. There was definitely one thing that if Chief Scott or someone from our police department is still here, I know that you've sent an email, if you might share from the podium as well, along the enforcement of the banned tobacco and how that happens would be great.
Hi, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to respond. Yes, certainly appreciated the speakers that came to talk about our ordinance and areas where we can improve and bolster to safeguard our community. We've had an opportunity, not only just in recent weeks, but in the past months and over this last year, to communicate with members of the coalition about our enforcement strategy and areas where we can look in the future to have more assistance from our community. The one thing I'd like to communicate to everyone here and anyone viewing, if you see something, say something. And our enforcement is really driven on complaints from the eyes and ears from our community. And we are proactive, but it's very helpful to have, when people see violations, to please notify the department, let us know where that's occurring, and we can put resources on that immediately. Aside from that, we do, a couple times a year, we do inspections of all of our locations, and we send out education materials to ensure that we have compliance.
And can you remind us what that number is when they see something, to say something, what do they call?
So I recommend 911 if in doubt, but we also have a non-emergency number, which is 805-781-721.
7312?
7312, that's it. Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. And we do have, I know we've approved in the past the approval of accepting the grant for Edward J. Byrne, I believe. I always forget the middle initial for the grant to be able to have more enforcement. When does that go into effect?
Correct, and those grant opportunities, sometimes they vary depending when they come in. And we also have some local funds that we use towards our education and enforcement. And so regardless if the grants happen or not, we still plan for that. We're just sometimes slower in our response. So the grant funding does tremendously help our ability to offset the incurring of the overtime and the hours.
Great.
But I will keep council informed when those grant opportunities do come along.
Great, thank you so much. And I believe Deputy City Manager Herman has something to add.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And just one addition to the Chief's comments, actually our Ask Slow app has a category specifically for flavored tobacco products in it. And so that's also a really efficient and easy way for members of the public to be able to report any potential violations of that ordinance. Also just want to add, and we've been in contact with members of the coalition as well today, is that there is a provision in the current city municipal code prohibiting smoking in outdoor common areas of multi-unit developments. I understand that there's a request to expand those provisions and certainly appreciate the heads up in advance of the 25-27 financial plan on that.
Great, thank you so much. And I don't know, Councilmember Schwartzman, would you like to add anything regarding the Welcome Home Village, or should we just wait till the June 4th time?
I don't have anything really to add, but I guess I will ask a question, not to put the interim city manager on the spot, but you did mention that it's coming to council on June 4th for the sub-recipient agreement. Are you at this time able to kind of give a little summary of what the sub-recipient agreement would include? Because I think there's probably questions from the public about whether or not we're making a decision about the project itself.
Right, so happy to provide a little more clarity on that. This is really, it's essentially our grant agreement. So the city portion of this project involves a share of that $13.4 million is actually intended to go to the city to conduct outreach efforts to the Bob Jones Bike Trail folks who are out there and the residents that we're trying to get moved from there and into this facility or into other sheltered opportunities in the city. So the subrecipient agreement is really just governing how we're going to use that funding in order to help that outreach piece of this project. It is not related to the site itself, and the city really does not have authority to quote, approve the project. It's not like a normal kind of land use decision, like a use permit or something else. Again, this is kind of the June 4th item. You know, ordinarily a grant agreement like this would appear on the consent agenda because it's a funding mechanism that we are using to then go do the services.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Shoresman.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because we are receiving funds as part of that $13.4 million to do the cleanup and outreach efforts of the Bob Jones Trail area. We're not receiving funds for the actual building of the project.
That's correct. And we will not be operating the site itself, that the county is handling, and then through contracts that it is entering into with Good Samaritan to operate the site.
I guess I'll just take one opportunity to mention that there is a website for people that have questions about the project. It's a SLO County website at slocounty.ca.gov/welcomehomevillage with no spaces. And there you can submit questions and county staff are responding to those questions. There's also a pretty robust FAQ on that page as well.
Thank you, City Attorney Dietrich.
I just wanted to, just for public clarity, in the event that folks are not able to attend the Planning Commission meeting, where there'll be a little bit more context and information provided as to the city's role, put a little bit finer point on the distinction between the grant funding support and the project and site approval, and just make sure that folks are aware for city purposes while we're making a general plan conformity determination. Your Planning Commission will do that for you tomorrow night. The county has self-permitting authority, so it's as though the city's regulatory permitting authority doesn't exist, and that is pursuant to an exemption under state law. So the city cannot make the county subject to its zoning regulations, but I do want to just point out to bring some comfort to folks, and there'll be a little bit more information, as I said, tomorrow at the Planning Commission, that the project would be an allowed use under the city's zoning regulations at the location where it's being proposed. And so again, more information available, and staff will help explain that a little further tomorrow night within the Planning Commission item. But I just wanted to, for purposes of folks who might be viewing tonight and not able to attend tomorrow night, provide that additional bit of information.
Great, thank you all for that clarity. I know there's a lot of confusion around Welcome Home Village and what our part is and what the county's part is, so I wanted to make sure that was clear, and if anyone chooses to watch this video later, they would at least have that information. So, moving on to consent agenda. Wanted to see if my colleagues have anything they need to pull first or have any questions about. Councilmember Shoresman.
Yes, I'd like to pull item 7D for a quick discussion.
Thank you, and Councilmember Francis.
I was going to request the same, so we're all good.
Perfect. All right, so can I have public comment and everything not on 7D, City Clerk?
We have none.
Okay, then Councilmember Marks.
I would like to move approval of the consent agenda except for 7D.
Sounds good. Vice Mayor Pease.
A second.
Great. And can we have roll call, City Clerk?
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pease?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much. I do want to just say really quickly on 7G that I am very grateful for the broadband easement on Damon Garcia property. We are continuing to look at how do we provide more equity and more access and having access to internet. Thank you so much to staff for making this happen. So moving on to 7D, Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, I had a couple follow-up questions for staff based on some of the agenda correspondence that we received kind of later in the day today, and then also on some of your responses to the questions that you received in advance and put those answers out. So I really appreciate that. Also had a chance to attend the Active Transportation Committee meeting when this was presented, so have a little bit of context from that, and wanted to, the agenda correspondence that we received later today from a constituent who is also the chair of the Active Transportation Committee was asking about some elements that were brought up at the meeting that don't explicitly appear in the RFP. He was asking about speed governors on the bikes, and also battery size and electrical power delivery, which would impact how far someone could go on one of these bikes, especially in a somewhat hilly town such as our own. So I just wanted to ask, I know these things came up at the ATC also, and he didn't see them incorporated into the RFP, so just wanted to ask about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much, Councilmember Shorsman. In response, my name's Lucia Pullman, and I'm the Sustainability and Natural Resources Analyst, and I've been leading the effort on the Bike Share RFP, and wanted to thank you for your question and also thank Russell Mills for his feedback. In response to his 2 points, so the first was around speed governance of potential e-bikes as part of a requirement for the RFP, and we did insert a requirement for Class 1 e-bikes. That's on in the scope of work section of the RFP in point 1 system type, and that's defined, it's a technical industry term, intends to be a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour, and that was the term that we heard multiple times during the ATC meeting and recorded as the consensus recommendation for an amendment to the draft that we brought to the ATC. But if council were to want a more specific speed governance, I remember in the email Russell sent for 17 miles per hour, that's something we'd be amenable to using. And we saw in peer cities like Santa Barbara that they are using Class 1 bikes that have a speed governance of 17 miles per hour.
Thank you. I think in going back and forth a little bit with Russell too, he wasn't necessarily proposing, although I do appreciate the idea of 17 miles an hour might be a little better choice for us, and I'll leave it to us to discuss that. But his proposal was really that we just incorporate into the RFP that the vendors clarify what their battery size is and what their speed governance limits are, so that we can take that into consideration when choosing between potential vendors. So just throwing that back, and then also maybe we can discuss the speed a little bit as a group. The other thing that I wanted to ask about was as a follow-up to one of your answers, the last question in the agenda correspondence, where we talked about some percentage of proceeds coming back to the city, and wondering if that is something that, I think it's been done in the past, and I don't know if it's been done in the recent past in other jurisdictions, and so wanted to know if you had any context or history around, is that something that's done in these RFPs, and is there any kind of profit sharing generally currently with these vendors?
Yeah, great question. As I understand, in larger cities, there is sometimes in a part of the contract a per dock fee for usage of public space. But the ATC discussion around this item made it seem like that might be a nice to have, but not something that they wanted to require. In wanting to avoid potentially scaring off a vendor that might not be able to provide that profit sharing.
So we could discuss maybe having that as an optional item that could receive extra points. And then if we don't get any, we don't get any.
Exactly. I think that would be a really easy amendment to make to the RFP. And I think it would make a lot of sense to provide extra points for folks who would be willing to profit share.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Herman.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Schwarzman. I do want to also add that there is an existing provision around the specifications for the bikes to be provided, which I think would answer some of your questions as it relates to the battery and range as well.
Was that in the RFP, or I just saw the class 1 reference. I didn't see anything more specific than that.
Yeah, in the RFP, we specify that class 1 as the desired speed governance. And as part of any proposal, we ask for detailed specifications about all characteristics of proposed e-bikes that a vendor would be providing, and as such would be receiving information about battery size and range.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's helpful too.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll leave it to deliberations. Councilmember Schwarzman.
Yeah, so I think, based on staff's responses and the agenda correspondence, I'd be interested in throwing in there a potential extra points for profit sharing with the vendor. I think, we have worked really hard at improving our network, our active transportation network in the city, and we know we still have gaps. There are going to be many places where people are going to be potentially riding these share bikes that are not up to what we would like them to be. I mean, we certainly are much better off than a lot of jurisdictions that have these programs, but my sort of feeling about that is why not? So I'm curious to see what you all think. And then about the speed governance, I'm wondering if people have any preferences about 20 miles per hour versus 17 like Santa Barbara has.
Thank you, Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Schwarzman, for all of those questions. I would be also happy to support language that adds in the profit sharing as just another incentive that folks can add in for additional points. On the governance, I'm not entirely, I don't have a preference on a particular speed, but definitely want to make sure that we have that information from all the different vendors so that we can vet that as it comes in. Sounds like some of our peer communities have set 17. I'd need a lot more data before I could come up with a specific number right now. Also just wanted to mention I was really pleased to see the language around safety and helmet usage in the RFP. So thank you for making sure that made that in.
Vice Mayor Pease.
I'm super excited about this item, and I think in terms of, I appreciate the questions and conversation. I probably wouldn't support having the additional consideration of kind of profit sharing. I feel like this is still a slightly precarious program for a city of our size. I mean, when we looked at this before, that there was, I mean, we would have to pay somebody to come in and do this program. So perhaps after the pilot program of 3 years, that the contract could be renegotiated. We could have a better understanding of the profit. And but if we could, at this point, it's like, gosh, if you're doing well financially, add more docks, add more bikes, be able to invest. So my inclination would to not modify that. I'm not as concerned, I'm open to the change in the miles per hour, though, I mean, I think all of us ride e-bikes. I tend to stay below that anyway. I think there's a certain comfort, but if somebody's on the bike path and feels clear and needs to go a little bit higher, I guess as long as they're doing it safely. So it doesn't seem like 20 is necessarily the wrong number. So I would leave it the way it is.
It's interesting because I actually very much honed in on the lack of profit sharing in the report, because I remember us discussing this before, and it was, we were gonna have to pay bikes, but we would, or bike companies, but we would get money from scooters. And there was a lot of conversation around that at that time. And so I feel, I mean, I'd be open to it, but I feel like if you're going to give us something extra, which is what the business would be doing in a sense, then if they want to sweeten the pot, they're going to do that on their own. I don't feel like we need to say, to spell that out. But so I'm not super against or for either direction, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I did see Mr. Mills' email, but unfortunately being today at the end of the day, didn't have enough time to really discuss with staff as far as 17 versus 20. Was there some really big win? I'm thinking if I'm hit as a pedestrian at 17 miles per hour or at 20 miles per hour, it probably hurts either way, but probably not going to actually, hopefully, cause fatal injury with 3 miles difference. But I don't know. I would want to have more data information to be able to have this conversation. But I have to say that I am super excited. I can't tell you, I kept waiting when this was on the forecast and when I saw this kind of on the agenda, because we've been talking about this bike sharing for a long time. And so really excited that this is possibly coming to fruition, and just want to say that. So, Councilmember Marks.
Yeah, I also am enthusiastic about this this option. The thing about offering the extra points for profit sharing, I would hope that what we would be looking at is the quality of the program itself, the quality of the equipment, the placement of the docks, and all the other things. And I wouldn't want to see a situation where a company that's willing to sweeten the pot, is what a mayor said, would necessarily get the contract, as opposed to a higher quality program. That's what I would like us to aim for, is the very highest quality we can get. So in terms of the speed, I still think that's pretty darn fast on a bicycle, but I leave it to the experts on that. So.
I went 16 miles per hour yesterday. I do want to just add one more comment too. I love the safety aspect as well, and I'm unfortunately picturing this TV show that everyone was sharing helmets, and sometimes there are communicable things in helmets. And so I just was wondering if in the proposals, do the businesses share how they would keep those clean? I don't know if that's something that you know about already, or if that's something in the future.
So as part of riding a bike in San Luis Obispo in California, if you're over 18, you aren't legally required to wear a helmet. And the bike share provider, as per our RFP, we're asking for a broad approach for protecting public safety that would promote or facilitate helmet use, but we aren't sure about how that might happen. And so hard to, in that scenario, imagine them providing helmets. And I think we'd have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
I figured I just had to ask. Thank you. Councilmember Schwarzman.
There are a pretty long list of things, I believe, in the RFP that you can get extra points for already, right? Can you remind me? I was going to try to scroll there real quickly and look, but can you remind me quickly, or remind the group here what some of those are?
Happy to. It is a long list, so excuse
you can hit the highlights.
My reading. Number of bicycles, quality of equipment, provision of bicycles that serve the needs of those with mobility challenges such as recumbent bikes, trikes, cargo bikes, community outreach and education, investment in wayfinding signage and other methods for riders to easily locate docking locations on the go, robust safety education programs, including helmet use, robust marketing strategy, integration with local transit, equity considerations, collaboration with local bike shops, and broad sustainability efforts.
Yeah, so there's a lot. So in my mind, it's unlikely that including one more line about profit sharing will make or break one application over another. It's kind of what I was thinking. So again, I kind of feel like why not? As to the speed governor, I'm content with knowing now that that nobody else has a preference around 17 versus 20 miles an hour on the maximum, knowing that we'll just be asking for that as part of the spec, and we'll be able to compare vendor for vendor what their battery size is and what their speed is, and make an informed decision about what is the best program for us based on the options that were provided. So I guess I'd like to make a motion to add a line about the profit sharing, but otherwise would be happy to approve make a motion to approve the RFP as is.
Can I ask a question before we go there? So it's often when we get to the point of council and you have the RFP ready, you're ready to send that off right away. So would that add a couple days, couple weeks? What does that add in your work time?
I don't think it would add more than 5 minutes.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you so much. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, I'd like to enthusiastically second that with the additional line about profit sharing just being one of the potential categories.
Okay, any other deliberation or questions? All right, City Clerk, can we have roll call?
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis? Oh, that's because there's 4 of my.
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pease?
No.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, motion passes 4-1. All right, that was exciting. It is 6:45. We're gonna take a quick 10-minute break and we'll see you back. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the quick break. And we're going to get back to the meeting for the public hearing and business items section of our meeting. And thank you very much to Emily Jackson and to Riley for providing the report on the budget and Q3. Or City Manager McDonald.
Thank you. I'm just here to say thank you and to help kick off this item and kind of orient everybody to what we're going to be discussing tonight. So this is a combination of a couple of different financial and budget related items. The first is a third quarter budget report. So every quarter we present an item to council to let everybody know where we're at in terms of our expenditures and our revenue forecasts through the quarter that we're in. And so at this point, we're ready to present our third quarter report. In addition, because we are now headed into the second year of our 2-year financial plan, we need to appropriate funding for our what we call our supplemental budget for the fiscal year 2024-25. That will be coming back to council on June 4th for consideration for adoption of the budget, but we wanted to take an opportunity to talk a little bit higher level about what we're looking at in terms of our budgeted and forecasted revenues and expenditures. And so included in this is a forecast that looks out 5 years. And so we'll be giving everybody kind of a high level view of what we're looking at coming down the line, as well as what we're looking at presenting as part of the supplemental budget. And with that, I guess one thing, many thanks to a huge team of staff who have really poured through a lot of information and coming together with not only the Q3 report, but also the supplemental budget kind of high-level overview and preview. So it's been a big team effort, and as it always is, and we just want to thank everybody for help and understanding and participation in the process. So
will take it away.
Thank you, Whitney. Mayor and members of the council, I'm very happy to say that the Q3 budget report is largely a clean bill of health for the city's finances. Revenue and expenditures are expected to finish in line with projections, right on budget. We're also really proud to announce 3 major city goal tasks completed in Q3 on housing and homelessness and climate action. And year-to-date 23 capital improvement program projects have been completed. Starting with the revenue, all major funds here are on track with budgets. The general fund is expected to be just below 75%, here at 71, just due to timing of receipts and seasonal trends. The water and sewer funds are a little above revenue because those numbers include 8 months of billing. So we actually expect them to be a little bit below 75%. The parking fund is well ahead. We see that driven mostly by mix of on-street parking versus garage and also more enforcement revenue than we would expect. The transit fund appears to be well below budget, but we're actually expecting transfers and grant funding to offset that by year end. Moving on to expenditures, again, everything is as expected this time of the year. We would see 75% being the goalpost. The general fund is just above that, driven largely by timing of CalPERS payments and obligations and purchase orders that are open. Similar story for the water fund. The sewer fund is above budget, largely due to some emergency repairs at the water resource recovery facility. That has since been addressed by council via completed projects budget amendments. The parking fund is a little above. The biggest component of that would be ongoing repairs and maintenance to the structures. Another important line item worth calling out is that when the parking fund exceeds revenue budgets, their credit card transaction processing fees will also exceed budget. The transit fund is right where we'd expect them to be. And with that, I'll hand it over to Emily for a storm update.
So as we have historically done for about the last year and a half, we'll be including a storm update related to progress on completing storm repairs, but also more importantly, getting some money back from FEMA and Cal OES. And so as you've heard quite a bit about, we've made very, very significant progress on addressing a lot of the storm damage that occurred throughout the city to public infrastructure in the January and March storms of last year. We're still estimating that we've got about $35.2 million in total damage, but we're of course still continuing to meet and carefully consider which of those projects we actually need to move forward on, given relative health and safety risk and likelihood of reimbursement. So continuing to meet monthly with our fire staff and city manager to continue to evaluate projects and just determining priority and what moves forward and when. So I expect that as we continue to have those conversations and continue to make progress on storm-related projects and actually get them completed, that we'll continue to refine that total estimate number. It has bounced around a little bit. We understand that, and we expect that it will continue to, but hopefully soon we'll see some stabilization as we start to make better progress in getting a lot of the work done. As of today, we've expended approximately $12.5 million on storm-related work and have submitted $9.3 million to FEMA for consideration of reimbursement. The single biggest project, obviously, that we've completed today, as of today, is the repairs made to San Luis Drive. Many of you, I think, attended the ribbon cutting on that a couple of months ago. That was a huge accomplishment, and now that Public Works is freed up from that one, they're full steam ahead on other projects, and us in the Finance Department are full steam ahead on getting all of these projects submitted to FEMA. So we're still anticipating about a 12-month turnaround time from the time that we're actually getting projects submitted. We submitted the first round of projects back in early October of last year, have continued to steadily submit more and more. We're now at the phase where we are submitting projects that have yet to be completed. And what that means is we're basically submitting estimated costs to FEMA without all of the estimates, just so that those projects are on FEMA's radar. And as they're completed, we will loop back to provide all of the detail about where the rocks came from and where they went and the exact GPS locations of everything that we touched in the ground and the root balls that disappeared or maybe were not completely removed from the ground. And so it's a pretty significant workload. We've talked about that previously, but we're continuing to plug away and are very, very hopeful that we will have at least placeholders for all of our projects submitted by the middle of June. So that will be a pretty big accomplishment for the organization, and then that will continue the 12-month clock. So we're expecting still, and we'll cover this in the forecast slide here in a couple of slides in the supplement preview, to expect to see some reimbursement in the new budget year, but don't expect to see any in the current year, just given when the projects were submitted. So that concludes the Q3 portion. We expected, just based on content, the fact that Q3 is showing us that we're generally on track in the current year. We expected that we'd probably spend more time this evening on the supplemental preview, and so we'll transition over to that and then have time for some questions and public comment and deliberation at the end of that. So like Whitney noted, the supplemental budget represents the appropriation of the second year of our 2-year financial plan, which was adopted in June of 23. The supplemental budget will formally come before council on June 4th, but we wanted to provide this preview just because there are a number of moving pieces. So I'm going to turn it over to Riley, who's going to walk you through, I think, two major points from the finance perspective. We'll take a look at the updated long-term forecast. Last time this council saw the forecast, it had been updated back in February as part of the mid-year budget update. Some changes have been made to that. We will provide a high-level overview of what we are planning to recommend in terms of significant operating budget changes, and then we'll turn it over to Public Works to provide an update and a discussion overview of the true-up process that they went through with the capital improvement plan. The intent of that, again, is to better align staff and financial resources with the projects that are ready to go and will be ready to go in fiscal year 24-25. So with that, I will kick it back to Riley.
Thank you. Our first view here is of the general fund's long-term forecasts, and this is a really important tool for us in informing financial decision-making and the recommendations that we put forth to council. We did a comprehensive overhaul of this at mid-year. Everything has since been reviewed and updated as needed. The big ticket changes to the long-term forecasts since mid-year were increased sales tax revenue forecasts. Year to date, we've been outperforming the financial plan, so that is factored into next year as well. And this is on the advice of our consultants. On the expenditures side, we're factoring in increased pension obligation costs. CalPERS continues to present headwinds to our expenditures budget. And for the first time, we're also adding the cost to staff and operate a 5th fire station as required by one of our development agreements. And our takeaway here is that we do expect expenditures to grow more quickly than revenues, which, if left unmitigated, would lead to a deficit. And that's certainly weighing on our recommendations to council for changes to the budget next year. So as we look at the requests that came in, the general fund, as informed by that forecast, received at $2.2 million, which staff thought was prudent to defer if possible, or fund within existing budgets wherever possible. The $379,000 that we expect to recommend are only the most critical and in areas where there's no offset available. Looking at the enterprise funds, the decisions on those requests are made in light of the forecasts for each fund. The big ticket item that jumps off on the page would be the water fund, includes a request to repair the Nacimiento pipeline, which is critical. The sewer fund would be adding a new position and increasing its electrical budget. The parking fund is requesting some needed repairs, and in light of the increased revenue, also requesting more budget for credit card processing fees. So because we do see the potential for the deficit, we've been somewhat conservative in what we would recommend to council coming back on June 4th. And with that, I'll hand it to my colleagues in Public Works for a CIP true update.
Hi, Matt Horn, Public Works Director. I'm going to introduce the item, and then Madeline's going to take it from there. But I just want to give you guys a kind of an overview of what we're planning on doing here tonight. And so with the 23-25 financial plan, a lot of that work was largely done by December 2022. And so I think Council will remember, and Emily just kind of gave us a rundown of what we did with Storm. And so we have been largely focused on Storm from January 2023 through the end of the calendar year, December 2023. And so that leaves capital improvement plan projects that were budgeted in the 23-25 financial plan that have resources aligned with those projects, but we haven't delivered or got them to a place where we're actually ready to construct. And so knowing that we've had larger inflationary cost of construction is escalating, we looked at our project schedules and said, hey, what can we actually construct prior to July 2025? And we put that on a list. And we also looked at those projects and said, hey, how much more money do we need for any of these projects, or are they funded well already? Looking at the projects that weren't going to make construction by that date, looking at the projects that needed more money for construction prior to that date, we developed the true up list. Madeline's going to walk you through some of the projects that we're planning on shuffling around to be able to deliver the community's priorities, not adjusting or eliminating projects, just aligning resources with the realities of delivering projects. So with that, I'll hand it to Madeline.
Okay. You can flip it. Sorry, I don't have the clicker. Riley. Yeah, so like Matt said, the basis of the CIP true-up was the start of construction happening prior to July 2025 and requiring an additional funding or having some type of a urgent CIP funding request. So that also takes into consideration projects that aren't moving towards construction prior to that July 2025 construction start date, and then balancing those two. So you can see here on the slide, you see those kind of two things balancing, and we'll kind of go over projects and how we made that work. So staff, along with the CIP review committee, identified 7 assets, 29 projects going into construction before that July 2025 date, requiring an additional $16 million for design, construction, or procurement support. These requests span across 7 different funding sources, and you can see the different funding sources and how they're broken up on your screen up there. So it's split between, general fund, LRM, and some enterprise funds as well. So there's a long list of all of our needs, and you can see that on in your packet agenda. But just to highlight a couple, I wanted to save a little bit of time and highlight a few. So staff is proposing allocating $35,000 towards the acquisition of some new Big Belly trash cans within the parking structures. This is to align with the current on-street receptacles. These Big Belly cans have demonstrated their functionality and aesthetic appeal, and so implementation in the structures is the next step. So that's that request. Mission Plaza enhancement recently
had one bid that we received. We had a discrepancy in that bid, and so we will be rejecting that and re-advertising. This request will be actually asking for additional funding that we believe the project will need to continue forward in construction. Receiving this funding at supplement will allow us to move forward more quickly once we receive those bids. Rigetti Neighborhood Park is a crucial element in the Orca area specific plan, and currently it's estimated at $23 million. Staff is actively pursuing a phased approach and prioritizing and segmenting out portions of the project based on the community's needs. We're recommending allocating $750,000 towards the initial phase of the project and hoping to move forward with the first phase of construction, which includes a play structure. In May of 2023, city staff acquired a new property at 1106 Walnut across from the existing police station. This property will provide office space for the city and potential future operational support for the police department. The current estimates for these improvements exceed available funding. So at this time, we're requesting some additional funding to support that project. The North Truro Greenway project is nearing completion with the final stages of construction underway. However, unforeseen utility conflicts have emerged during the installation of fence footings, necessitating additional work by the contractor, which adds additional costs to the contract. Furthermore, the project is currently in the initial phase of the undercrossing painting, which involves the engagement of a muralist and the installation of some decorative lighting. So this cost would cover that portion of the project. The 2024 ceiling project is expected to start construction this summer and anticipates seeding additional funding for not only the base bid, but a bid alternative expected for Grand Avenue. That would be a temporary solution. That is coming to council on the May 21st City Council meeting, so you guys will receive additional information on that project. All right. Thank you. On the flip side, the city has identified 32 projects that will not be going into construction prior to that date. And just want to give a caveat, this is again not city staff reprioritizing any CIP projects. This is merely just due to current construction schedules and staff constraints. So that's about $22 million that we've identified as an offset that we can put towards projects that are moving towards construction and utilize towards the CIP true-up. You can see a full list of these projects on table 4 on page 329 of your agenda packet. And we'll go over just a couple of these. So as mentioned before, Mission Plaza Phase 1 is moving forward. However, Mission Plaza Phase 2 and 3 are not ready for construction and have some available budget that we can utilize towards the Phase 1 of the project. So staff is recommending reallocating the $470,000 towards Phase 1 of the project. Due to staff resources, the Bob Jones Trail Solar Lighting Project is just not ready for construction. We have been actively working on the design, but yeah, utilizing that funding towards the current financial plan will prioritize projects that need that funding. Sorry, parking pay station installation. So during the November 7th, 2024 council meeting, 2023 council meeting, when you guys received parking updates for some reduction in rates, there was a council action taken to reduce parking rates on Sundays and the first hour free. As part of that, there was a caveat that there was assumed assumption saying that we would be basically taking some reductions in CIP should we opt in for these measures. So this parking pay station installation project is one of those measures that we'd be taking and putting back in towards the parking fund. The wharf and wastewater collections maintenance facility is currently in the design phase and is not ready for construction. Additional funding for this would be utilized for the support of the true-up and then also to replenish the sewer unreserved capital fund. And for this reason, it's because of for future CIP planning purposes. And the last one is Sacramento Drive paving. And the reason why we are suggesting reallocation of these funds is at mid-year of the 2024 financial plan, we suggested that we give $220,000 towards this project. And in the interim, we found a solution that would work for that roadway. And since that project is slated to be in the 2025 paving project, we've suggested that that interim solution stay for the meantime and the project be put on the next paving project. So as you can see here on the table, we've balanced the funding requests versus the recommended transfers and reallocations. Just a caveat, we still have a couple moving parts, so things might change a little bit before the June 4th council date. We have identified the parking and sewer funds, which are a little bit additional going into those transfers and reallocations for the reasons mentioned previously. But otherwise, we have identified funding sources for all of the current needs. And then just touching on the infrastructure investment fund. Originally, this was earmarked for the Prado interchange and Prado widening projects. These funds have evolved a little bit to support a broader community benefit. And as the city increases the leverages of the IAF fund, we believe it's important to be transparent about the reporting of these funds, and wanted to just highlight to council the fund summary of the current year and then also the forecast for 24-25 and 25-26. This has shifted a little bit from what you see on your packet, and we wanted to highlight this because things are moving and dynamic, and we want to give you the most up-to-date information as we approach the June meeting. As we look towards the next financial plan, we're looking at the Prado Bridge widening project, which unfortunately will not be ready for construction before that July 2025 date. It's looking at October or November of 2025. So we're looking also at, on your current packet, there was a mid-year planned repayment, which was about $3 million, a little bit less than $3 million that we identified at the mid-year. This amount was contingent on FEMA reimbursement, and since we haven't received FEMA reimbursement, this is why we're shifting down to 25-26. So you can see we've shifted not only the FEMA reimbursement, but the Prado Bridge widening down to that 25-26 to balance those a little better. And I believe that's it for me. I'll pass it back to Emily.
Thank you, Madeline. So we've shared a lot of information this evening, and I think it's prudent, with a 2-year financial plan, we're doing something a little bit different every year. So just to remind the council of what our next steps are, I think that'll be helpful. So we'll be back on June 4th for formal recommendations and seeking your consideration of adoption of staff's recommendations relative to the supplemental budget for fiscal year 24-25. I do want to pause here and acknowledge that, the $8 million projected deficit by fiscal year 28-29 feels very jarring. I understand that. I appreciate that. And I want to reiterate some of what we talked about last week, which is that, we have a financial plan steering committee, and that group is going to be spending the summer months having strategic conversations about how do we prevent ourselves from actually getting there. So a forecast is just that. We don't have a crystal ball. It's our best estimate. It's assumptions layered on top of assumptions and other assumptions. And so our job is to foreshadow potential coming budget difficulty or opportunity. Felt that it was very prudent given that charge that we include operations of a 5th fire station, understanding that that's going to have to come online here pretty soon. But I don't see this as a doom and gloom scenario. This is a warning of what could happen if we don't take action right now and make small decisions here over the next couple of years. I think that we're in a pretty good position to be able to significantly reduce that projected deficit. And so I expect that the Financial Plan Steering Committee will have a lot of conversations as soon as we're wrapped up with the supplement to start getting ourselves ready for 25-27 financial plan development. And fortunately, we have a number of budget items that go along with that. So we will be returning to council where needed to get input and guidance and approval of conceptual plans about budget reduction strategies over the coming years. That doesn't mean reduction of expenditures necessarily, but reduction of a projected deficit. And so we will be back after the supplemental item on June 4th in August or September to present the fiscal year 23-24 year-end report, and then again in the fall to provide your council and the community with sort of the context and economic indicators that we're dealing with as we move into 25-27 financial plan development. Budget foundation will come before your council after the start of the new year. As a part of that, we'll be reporting on input provided from the community and then planning for the community forum and your goal setting workshop for 25-27, as well as presenting potential policy updates for your consideration that will guide development of the 25-27 and subsequent financial plans and budget management. And then, of course, we'll move into our goal setting workshop and then working towards finalizing development of the financial plan for your consideration in early June of 2025. So there is a lot of budget here upcoming. As soon as we get done with the supplement, we'll be hard at work on the next 2-year financial plan. So we look forward to having a lot more budget conversations with you all in the coming months. So that concludes staff's presentation this evening. I'm happy to open it up for questions on either the third quarter portion of the presentation earlier or the preview of the supplemental budget for 24-25.
Wow, thank you for the overview of what we have to come, and also to both of yourselves and your colleagues for sharing the CIP true-up. I think that is very helpful for people to see. And I have to say that our conservative financial practices and budget strategies through the decades has really served San Luis Obispo community well. I'm talking people who live here, people who work here, people who visit here, is because of the hard work that you all as staff do and the direction you have, as well as the community coming together constantly and saying, what do we want? How do we connect with our budget? And sorry to jump into that before we go into questions, but I think sometimes people aren't part of this whole process. They may not know all of what just goes into our budget, and what you just shared, this little bit of it was huge, so thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you so much. Echo the gratitude. You've mentioned a couple times the CalPERS and the headwind there, and then I know we'll get all the details in June, but can you just share maybe order of magnitude, kind of what the increase is?
Thank you. So the increase in the forecast that you're seeing this evening compared to the forecast you saw back in February with the mid-year budget update represents an increased cost for a regular payment to CalPERS of about $1 million. That's again, in comparison to the actuarial report that we got from Foster & Foster back last May, almost exactly a year ago. And that $1 million increase for our annual payment this year was really due to just ongoing volatility, market conditions, all of the things that we talked about last May that are unfortunately outside of our control. So we believe that despite that $1 million increase this year, that we still get feedback that we're on the right path, we're doing the right things. We recognize it's frustrating to see the additional payments we make not on paper showing as much progress as it feels like it should, but we're doing what we can, and I think we're doing the right things and recognize that it's
Thank you. And so with that in mind, we obviously some years ago spent a lot of effort on our fiscal health, kind of having that kind of how do we pay that thing down? And so that we have the $2 million additional payment. Is it with how that investment is going at the state level? Do we need to revisit that in the future? Should we start to think about that as in the upcoming financial plan as is $2 million enough for us to be able to meet our goals?
Yeah, I thank you for that question. I think that is something we probably need to look at. The $2 million additional annual payment was established before we saw some pretty significant staffing and then salary growth. And so with salary growth comes additional pension obligations. So I think we probably do have an opportunity to take a look at what staffing levels today, what that $2 million that we currently have would translate into with our current headcount compared to where we were at the time that $2 million amount was established. Of course, I think, there'll be trade-offs associated with that. Too soon to know what that would be, but certainly, and if that's a measure of our ongoing fiscal health, and so would advocate that, of course, as we have an assigned fund balance at the end of any given year, that we prioritize payments, we continue to prioritize payments to CalPERS to help pay down that unfunded liability. But yeah, I do think we probably need to take a look at the $2 million amount.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Not things we want to do, but things we know we need to take a look at. I wanted to follow up a little bit on the memo about the housing policy. So not sure if that will be community development staff, but I really appreciate the follow-up from the March 5th City Council meeting where we talked about housing. We got a lot of feedback in the moment from the community, and since then, some of those folks have been convening the AIA, working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Home Builders Association and developers, and so we received some correspondence, which has, given us, and there's been an the table here on page 285 of the packet. It came in as part of the agenda correspondence. So I guess I'm wanting to check with our community development director about kind of what's been incorporated into this work plan, and I think we'll probably hear from folks, but based on what you've seen so far, are there things that we can fold into the the 24-25 budget, or do we need to think about allocating additional resources, making some shifts, or would it really just fold into that 25-27 fiscal plan? Wow, that was a lot, sorry.
I think I got it all. All right. So you're referring to, we provided a matrix, and that's a result of the study session that we had on housing needs and opportunities in the community. Timmy Tway, Community Development Director, sorry for the public. And so what we did based on council direction was put it into a matrix format to try to make sense of all of the ideas that we brought forward to you about housing opportunities, things we heard from the council at that time and from the public. And also you'll see there's a few things in there that are listed as new, and these are things that, over the course of the last few months, they weren't on our work program, but are things that we either have to do or opportunities that we would like to pursue because they're very important to the housing continuum. And they're divided into kind of short-term things that are already in our work program, medium-term actions that are in our work program, and then long-term actions that are not in our current work program, but we think are worth thinking about. And then you are alluding to some correspondence we received from members of the public who I think have spent a lot of time with this matrix and thought through what would be helpful to the development community when providing housing for all in the community. And so I've had a little bit of time to look at that, not much time to look at the correspondence, but I think the answer is a little bit of everything. To be honest, we are pretty full with our work program at this point. Like, we are staffed and funded for the things that you see in our current work program. So anything additional would be kind of a strain on staff, or we'd need a little extra, or is something to think about folding into our next work program and budget cycle. There are, just preliminarily looking at the comments from the public, there are a few things that, some of the smaller items could maybe be folded into some of the existing. For example, we have some code cleanups that we do periodically, or we're contemplating some changes to our objective design standards. There are some related comments that we could add a little bit to the scope of the existing work program and get it done just with a little extra time and staff effort. But I haven't had a lot of time to look through those things. So the answer is a little bit of everything, but we are pretty much at capacity. So big new items, we'd have to trade out something for the next year or think about it for the next fiscal planning cycle. Is that helpful?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Francis is going to add on to that, and we'll come back to Vice Mayor Pease.
Is that okay, Councilmember Schwarzman? Thank you so much for that answer. And just as a kind of follow-up for us, since we got all this feedback from the public about items that they'd like to see, and you were mentioning that some of them will be easy to fold in and some of them not so much, will we receive some sort of correspondence so that we can see what items made it in and then what items maybe we need to revisit as part of the budget cycle?
So I think at this point, I would recommend maybe as part of the, and City Manager McDonald can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe as part of the June 4th conversation, if we can take a few weeks before that staff report comes out and take a look at the items that the public has recommended, we could see, here's where we could amend our work program item to incorporate this request or this idea or studying this thing. And then the other ones, I think we could just state this, we don't have the capacity for these things at this time, and then the council could make a decision if we just plan for those things moving forward, or if you switch something out in the existing work program for another one of the actions.
Oh, that would be so helpful, just to understand the hierarchy of resources that are needed to accomplish some of those things on that list. Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Pease.
I was just going to, that was super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwarzman. Sorry, City Manager, did you need to add to that last topic?
Thank you. Just to add like a little bit of maybe clarity, if we're looking at the list of suggestions that we did receive from a group that was really diving deep into the matrix that we had put together, tagging onto the discussion that we had in March, I think a number of these will naturally come up during the items that we're already doing. So through just collaboration and coming up with ideas that we're receiving from the public, we can likely easily fold them in. Other ones are going to be a little bit more challenging. So I think that there's, as Director Tway was mentioning, it's a blend, but I just wanted to let folks know that I think that the feedback is really helpful as we kick off those efforts. We know we already have ideas that we can incorporate at the outset. Otherwise, we might have gotten there later through just the public outreach process, but through the discussions, we're able to kind of narrow that down even more.
Great, thank you so much. Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. I'm going to attempt to try and make sure I understood all that we were just talking about in relation to housing items, and then I have some other questions. So it sounds like to me, based on what we had happening before, but from our earlier study session, we had this list was created that was in our staff report, and now there are some other suggestions that we've seen in agenda correspondence from the community, and so the idea now is to take a look at both of those things and see if any of them, any of the community, the more recent community feedback has any crossover with what's already in the table, and implement those things where possible. And then we might have a list at the end that we need to address in a different way or at a different time, or figure out if we want to reprioritize things.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, because I did have some questions about that as well. A couple of these are kind of detailed questions about some of the things that were discussed in the slides of where we've reallocated funds because we don't see things coming to construction before June 2025. I was a little bit confused about the $200,000 for Sacramento Drive and how that was on the books, but is part of the 2025 paving plan. I don't know who is best to clarify that.
Sure. Yeah, Matt Horn, Public Works Director. So as part of the mid-year budget, council allocated some funding to fix the bike lane on Sacramento Drive, as it was reported that it was a bit rough and could be safer. So we put together a project estimate to go in there with a contractor and grind out portions of the bike lane and put it back with fresh asphalt, knowing that in the next year or two, we're actually going to need to do the full street width there. So we had that information. What we did is we took our maintenance staff out there, looked at different things that we could massage, make better, in order to not expend the $200,000, use some maintenance dollars instead, make it safer, and we'll be out there periodically throughout the year or two before we actually pave the roadway. But trying to not put additional funding into a roadway that we were going to grind up again shortly thereafter. So that was the rationale.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I know I've ridden on that stretch many times, and there are definitely some rough patches. So.
Good opportunities out there.
Yeah, opportunities. Yes, great word choice there. Also curious about the big belly trash cans for the parking structure. I know that, or I believe, if my recollection is correct, our first round or two of the big belly trash cans that we got was through some grant funding. And so I'm guessing, and would just like, I guess, clarification that we like the big belly trash cans enough to spend another $35,000 on them to put them in the parking structures as well?
Well, I can tell you at a staff level, we love the big belly trash cans. Well, one, aesthetically, they're pleasing. Two, they do a great job confining trash and keeping it in the receptacle instead of it going out in different places. And really, that was part of the thought process of trying to make our parking structures more clean and accessible and inviting to our community. Really kind of not to delve into parking world because we're going to get there next week, but really we want to make sure that our parking structures are clean and inviting to increase our occupancy there. We've had multiple purchases of big belly trash cans. Some have been general fund, supported. Some have been through a grant effort, and I forget the specific grant that we got for it. And I just had a quick conversation with Director Floyd, and there could be some additional other funds that we can use for the recycling cans for the Big Bellies. So yes, staff likes them too. I believe the general public enjoys them quite a bit. I've only heard rave reviews, so I'm a Big Belly fan.
I am too so far, but just wanted to make sure that they were providing all that we had hoped they would, I think, from a staff perspective. So that's good to hear.
I just want to add, Councilmember, it has reduced my Ask Slow app comments now that the door's shut and garbage is not spilling out, so.
Yes, agree 100% there. And I love the sustainable slow wrap too. They just look really nice. The last question I had was about if you could scroll back one slide. I think it was about or maybe 2 slides. It was about the Infrastructure Investment Fund. Yes. So am I correct that the tables that are on this slide are slightly different? At least the 25-26 one is slightly different than what was in the staff report on, I can't remember what page the staff report it's on, 317, something like that.
Yes, you're correct. Yes, these are revised from what you have in your agenda packet, and we're expected to have them revised for the June meeting based on some current findings that, we've identified in the last week or so. That's how dynamic these situations are. So yes, in your report, it shows that the Prado Bridge widening $10 million is in the 24-25. So in the table above, kind of where the red writing is, that's where it's shown. And then it also shows a little less than $3 million in that 24-25 table. For the mid-year planned contribution and additional that was specified during mid-year that we would be putting in should we get FEMA reimbursement. So that was kind of the caveat. And since we did not get the FEMA reimbursement, that's kind of why we've shifted priorities.
So that is now the FEMA reimbursement line in 25-26 that instead of being 2.9 million is around 3 million?
Yes.
For easier math?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I was wondering how that number shifted just slightly on the bottom line there of 808 from 768. Okay, it's just rounding.
That's correct.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to, first of all, just thank you for all this information. It's very helpful to have the context so that when we do look at the June 4th meeting, we have some sort of general background to put it all into. And I also wanted to echo what the mayor was saying about the really prudent financial policies that the city has followed for decades. And one of the principles that we've followed is shorthand development must pay for itself, so that the city does not become in a situation where we're giving out corporate welfare, that kind of thing, where we're making sure that when development happens, it does have to pay its fair share. Not any more, not any less. So I'm concerned a little bit about the fire station number 5. I'm a big fan of fire station number 5, which doesn't exist yet. But when you're talking about the increased staffing that we have to for that non-existent fire station number 5, where do we imagine that funding coming from? Is that coming from the general fund, or are there any kind of impact fees or any? I mean, it's a consequence of the city building more and more housing that we have to have another fire station. So where is that money coming from?
So the forecast assumes that the bulk of the funding for the operation of the fire station would come from the general fund. There is a small annual contribution from the Avila Ranch CFD. I think it's about $150,000 a year. And then we're expecting that in the first 2 years of operation that it's likely that we can secure some grant funding to offset the cost of some of the staff positions. But at this point, the ongoing non-general fund source of funding for that would be the $150,000 annual contribution from the CFD.
That doesn't in any way address the capital, what it would cost to actually build it, right? To actually build the station.
Correct. So the forecast just factors in the ongoing operations, which are based upon current development activity, expected that we're going to we will have an obligation to provide at least a temporary fire station by July of 2026. So that's why it kicks in the fiscal year that it does on the long-term forecast. The development of the actual station itself, the capital costs associated with that's a conversation that's kind of on a separate track. I think we have a lot of options that we're still working to identify what all of our options are, at least for the temporary requirement, and then working to identify a location for the permanent fire station when we get to that point. And I'll see if Whitney has anything else to add.
Sure thing. Happy to provide a little more information about the development agreement with Avila Ranch that really is where this obligation is housed. I mean, of course, we would be looking at our service to the city and our needs overall, but we do have an obligation in the development agreement to staff a fifth fire station once the project develops out at 50%. And so that's what we're estimating that's going to occur in around the summer, July of 2026. The development agreement also obligates the developer to provide land for an interim, this temporary fire station, and to build it. So we are in discussions with them. There's been a lot of design work around what that station would look like. But we've also been discussing the design, and the development agreement called for a 2-person medic squad essentially at this site. There's likely a need for a larger company, a 3-person company, which the site is constrained. Then if that's the case, then is there enough space to actually house a 3-person company there? These are all of the issues we're working through. At the end of the day, there should be a capital contribution at the least from the developer for building of the 5th fire station. But there's a calculation we'll need to go through and a determination of what's their fair share versus the rest. And so that's something we're continuing to discuss with them.
Thank you. That helps a lot. Thanks. One thing that I hope for, not tonight, but for June 4th is that when you are projecting out these deficits in the future, if you can tell us like where that's coming from. I mean, it's coming from like not enough money, right? In the big picture. But if you could just kind of tease out where you would find those shortfalls falling, like where they're coming from, the causation and all that would be very helpful. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to my colleagues for asking most of the questions I had. So that's wonderful. I think I just had, one thing that was kind of a little confusing at first was around that now I can't say it, 5th fire station, around being the cause. I can't remember exactly which page it was, but for one of our quarter funds that was low, but it really was more the CalPERS. Sorry that I've now lost my page here. It really was more the CalPERS cost, so it just seemed odd the way that it was written. But other than that, I think we're all on the same page at this point. I think the other part when we ask for trade-offs is what you've given us, which is, seeing what the CIP true-up was very helpful in that. I look forward to the updated, I'm sure agenda correspondence will have the updated list. And, and I also do appreciate Councilmember Shoresman's thoughts on, do we need to do these extra trash cans right now? Like, is it right now the most important thing? And that's at the same time, I don't even know what that works out to, 0.001% of the budget or whatever that would be. So, but really when we think about, there's what can be done, which is what you've shared today, but also then what do we need to do is kind of, I guess, that next step. So when we're talking about June 4th, in the trade-off section, I would love a little bit more on what we need to do, what we'd like to do versus really kind of need to do versus just dreamy world like to do. And I think there's, that's when the public asks us, well, why are we doing this for A versus B? Here's the reasoning, we can really put that in. So I know you do that already, but I just wanted to say, keep doing it. Well, thank you so much. At this point, are there any public comment items? If anyone else is here that would like to put in a public comment on the budget, this is now your time, or forever hold your peace to June 4th.
Right now, we have 3 speaker cards.
Great, thank you so much.
And so our first speaker will be Barry Price, followed by Scott Collins, and then Jim D'Antona.
Mayor and council members, Barry Price. I'm speaking tonight as a representative of the Slow Rent Coalition, our local tenants union. And we were really happy to see in the staff report that work is continuing on our safe housing outreach and education program as a key strategy for achieving our major city goal on housing and homelessness. We applaud the work that our code enforcement team is doing to help keep people safe. It's become apparent that code enforcement is handcuffed by lack of resources, staff, and the tools they need to oversee the 2/3 of all households in SLO that are tenant occupied. We're short at least 2, maybe 3 positions there, and we'd love, as you consider what can be accommodated in the supplemental budget or the next budget cycle, we'd love to see those positions funded so we can really achieve this major city goal. Additionally, it's clear that code enforcement requires more and better tools to enforce our existing rules and business licensing requirements, and to deter violators and scofflaws. To improve the efficiency and effectiveness of code enforcement activities, we ask council to consider use of enforcement tools such as recorded notices of violation and increased and new fees and fines to deter repeat offenders and those who just straight out ignore our current standards and our notifications, because quite honestly, there are currently no real consequences for bad actors. And it's kind of time for the city to take a little tougher stand with the worst offenders. Given the conditions we're seeing out there, it's likely these increased fees and fines would generate sufficient revenue to fund the staff and the programs that we really need to ensure safe, secure, and affordable rental housing. And finally, we suggest that the city add to the Safe Housing Work Program exploration of a voluntary rental registry of landlords who have on their own offered to demonstrate compliance with safe housing standards. Staff received some direction back in 2017 that they should not pursue a voluntary registry or safe housing self-certification program, and we think it may be time to reconsider that direction and explore that program. So thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you so much.
Scott Collins, and then Jim D'Antona.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor Stewart, City Council members and staff, Scott Collins here with the Executive Director for the Housing Authority here in SLO. I just want to thank you all for prioritizing housing and addressing homelessness through your budget allocations, programs, policies, and your work plans. Your consistent commitment to these important issues has led to meaningful action and outcomes. City of SLO is now a pro-housing designated city. And according to the most recent point-in-time count for SLO County, we witnessed a decline in homelessness in our community. And that's something we should celebrate. So we appreciate your continued support of pragmatic policies, but also trying new things and learning from those experiments, and really, truly constantly engaging with stakeholders and your community to understand their concerns, ideas, hopes, and aspirations. This is how you build an inclusive and successful city. I just want to thank Vice Mayor Pease and Interim City Manager McDonald and Community Development Director Tway for engaging with a group of local architects, nonprofit, and market rate developers recently to discuss, what are some low-hanging fruit that can be rolled into the existing work plans, hopefully. I understand there's a lot there, and I applaud the director and her team for taking on such a monumental task. So last thing we want to do is overwhelm staff. But we believe there are some tweaks that can be made with the existing work plan, looking at the objective design standards, maybe reducing the number that you have to do to get something built, looking at the ADU code to make sure it matches the state code. The Mid-Higuera area has very small language tweaks that could unlock housing, because right now as it's written, with flood control mitigation, it's impossible to meet. The ARC process could be moved to the beginning of development, where we're in the initial design stages, and then come and have a collaborative discussion where we can actually make progress on the design that the community wants to see, versus bringing a fully baked project to the ARC and then having it demolished there and having to start over and have multiple meetings to get to the same outcome. Downtown height, we're not seeing anything built at 75 feet. So I think looking at those regulations more closely to see if that can be unlocked. On the medium term existing work plan, there's a lot of hope for the Monterey Special Focus Area. We're thinking maybe we can broaden that to include a more broader focus on corridors. Long-term existing work plans, and this is kind of near and dear my heart, housing has been unlocked for affordable housing developers through the density bonus program, and we think that can be extended to market rate developers too. Again, we thank you for your leadership, your openness to new ideas, and working with your community. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Jim D'Antona.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Apologize for the late correspondence. That is a miscommunication between a bunch of architects, developers, and chamber staff members trying to, wait, you're not doing it? Did I do it? Was I supposed to do it? So I apologize you got that late, but this was a big thank you, again, as Scott Collins identified, to Councilmember Pease, Interim City Manager Whitney McDonald. Now I have to do all the titles because he did it. Community Director, Development Director Tway, for having this conversation with us. It was really great opportunity to talk about, not about what are these huge ideas that could really change housing. It was, is there a way we could make an and here, an or here? Can we look at this code over here? Is there a way to change this at the front to the back, right? Small things, at least initially, that we all can do that have been kind of blocking that move. And so we identified some of those ideas right there so that we can engage this conversation over the next month in order so that what comes back here, well, based on your staff reports, I think it has to be done by tomorrow. But but still in the next couple of weeks, really focusing on some of these things, because we do understand that there is a work program already in motion. Can we fit some of these things in? And is there anything else where we might be able to swap something out that actually unlocks big moves in housing for our community? And then other things, we're just gonna have to get into the program as it goes into maybe that next budget year. But we're so thankful, again, to be part of a city that has identified housing, become pro-housing, and we think through all of these folks who are doing this work, again, nonprofit housers, for-profit housers, the architects who are going back and forth with staff, that by doing some of these small tweaks, changes, that we actually can do some things to move it forward and actually see some of that change. You know, you look at, I was recently in Heidelberg. I did the joke when I was there, the oldest college town, right, in Europe, that has 6 stories of mixed use, multimodal streets, and college town, and is so charming. It can happen. It really can. And I would love to see us being able to do some of that, to make that in our downtown, right? Creating that energy that supports retail and businesses and housing and all of those wonderful things, and deals with transportation. So we look forward to continuing the work and working with all of you to try and make that happen. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other speakers, City Clerk?
No, there are not.
All right. Well, moving forward, I have to say just very quickly before I click on your microphone is I do want to say thank you very much, Vice Mayor Pease and Interim City Manager McDonald, as well as Community Development Department Director, all the titles, Tway, because one of the things that I often hear is the giantness of the public sector and the city. We can't move as nimbly as I think business would like us to, and we cannot, that is true, but we can do some things, and I have seen you time and time again, whether it was parklets during COVID or now what you're looking at with housing, you have just done some really great things to help us move the city and this giant being forward, so thank you. Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you, that's so nice. Super grateful for the group that came together and is, excited about continuing to come together and work out those details, because I certainly don't know a lot of them. I guess I just have a few comments. And I'll just start with the housing. And I think we have a good approach in terms of figuring out the work program. And if there is opportunity to do more, let's do more. And that if there's funding that shows, oh, we could bring on, a staff or a consultant to take on this other thing that might move something forward a little bit more quickly, like updating corridor plans in order to, and I think thinking about things in a full corridor rather than one area would take pressure off. If we're like Monterey, all the way down Higuera, South Higuera, like be able to think about whole corridors. And then, what are appropriate heights, figure out that flood mitigation. And I think that's really powerful. And I think that could be effective. And I know we have a lot of major city goals, but really it's housing, right? Housing addresses our climate goals. Housing addresses equity. Housing addresses a thriving economy. I mean, like all these pieces that we know, if there's one thing that we got to stay innovative on is housing. So I hope we can do that. I think we're on that track, but that would be the one thing that I would kind of encourage more of. Do kind of small things. The thoughtful true up on the CIP, yes, that was really important for us to understand and be realistic. And I think we could maybe even be a little more realistic, we're exhausted by paving projects. You know what I mean? Maybe we need to back off a little bit more and shift some of those out and just give ourselves a little bit breathing room for staff to be able to, accomplish some other things and not feel like we're, running, one paving contract against the other. So that would be my comment on the true up. I know that chart, we spent a fair amount of time last time talking about the general plan and the housing units to the population, and it shows up, it keeps showing up and it's just inaccurate, right? Or so if we want to show like, here was the plan and here's what it really is now, I just think we need to be accurate about, you know, either like we have this many units and we have this population and it doesn't match what that chart is. And so I think that kind of informs some of our decision-making and our planning for like, oh, we're at this many units on our general plan. It's like, you know, maybe for fire, that number of units is the metric, but for some other services, it's number of people. So I think we need to be accurate with that chart. And you know, with the housing, I think the points made about rentals and safety and code enforcement, it looks like it's on the work plan. I think we all have buy-in to that. So I just, you know, appreciate that effort as well. I think that's what I have right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. I am not going to say too terribly much, but I do want to echo my colleagues that have thanked the team for the really detailed deep dive work on the CIP, true up, on the third quarter report, on the supplemental budget. It's very, very clear that you all have spent a lot of time and emotional energy trying to make the sausage, if you will, in those meetings. Must have been, you know, really difficult to try and figure out, do we do the big belly trash cans or do we do this other thing? You know, it's, they're all really important. And I know from being a county staffer that we all have the projects that we've been working on and we really want to see them come to fruition. So I know how hard it is to reshuffle things like that. And so I appreciate the creative way that that was done. Just one of the comments that our public comment made that appeared, or one of our commenters made about some of the items that were in the feedback that we got tonight just before the meeting. One of the items was, you know, can we move the ARC and the Cultural Heritage or Planning Commission process to earlier in the development review process? And if I'm remembering correctly from my time on the Planning Commission, there are opportunities if a developer does, and I guess I'm looking at staff to see if this is correct, but there are opportunities if a developer wants to bring a development more in a conceptual level to the ARC to have it looked at early in the process as a sort of advisory consulting role, or is that true? I remember that happening a couple of times.
So since I've been here under a year, I can still say I'm so new. So I have not seen that happen in my time here, but that isn't uncommon. And if that's what you're remembering, then, you know, I think in general, staff is more than happy to facilitate developers going before, you know, as long as we're complying with the regulations. But just to get preliminary feedback, I think that helps everyone in the process. So unless Christine, you know otherwise, I imagine that that's something that we do, and we're happy to facilitate that.
So that might be something to just look into in the future if there are developers out there that are wanting that earlier feedback. It might not necessarily negate the need for coming back at the end, but just wanted to throw that out there. On the CalPERS question, and I guess just on the, you know, the projected deficits overall, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate staff's foresight and bringing this to us, you know, now so that we have the opportunity to prepare, and knowing that they're thinking about where we're going and what we might need to recommend as trade-offs in the future. And also pointing out that in these projections, we still have things like deposits into the Revenue Stabilization Reserve and the 115 Pension Trust Fund, which are all good practices, and we probably want to continue those as long as we can. But there are things that if we really, really had to tighten our belts in some places, we could do. Not that I'm suggesting that we do that right now, but just saying that I think this shows just real foresight and planning to be continuing to look at those things like we're going to keep doing them, like they're givens, like they're things that we need to do, and knowing that that these are projections and not necessarily reality. So thank you for all the great work, and we'll look forward to June, I guess.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Francis.
Yes, thank you so much, and for all the comments from my colleagues up here. I just particularly wanted to focus on the thoughtful long-term budget projections. Is incredibly helpful having all of those additional pieces wrapped into the budget so we can really think with a clear-eyed vision for the future about what we need to be planning for. And then also that you all are going to be meeting already this summer, thinking 5 years into the future, how we can help bridge those gaps. And it's a ton of work, and I'm really appreciative of all of that you're going to be doing, particularly just to make sure that we're addressing the CalPERS and the fire station needs here. And just again, with a thank you for all of the commenters, it is really wonderful to see all of these different community groups coming together with staff, working on trying to problem solve together, both on building new housing and also with the renters union, trying to address the housing that we already have and ensure that it's safe for everybody. So thanks to staff, and thank you especially to the community members who've been working so hard on these issues.
Thank you. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank my colleagues for all these great comments. First of all, I do want to say that it's really important. I'm just following up on what Councilmember Francis was saying about the deficit. It is really important to try to see if there are ways we can fend off kind of these deficits. But I also have to say that I have had the unfortunate experience of being on city council when there's been, during the Great Recession, and we had to actually lay people off. We had to reduce police. We had to, I don't even want to remember. I'm repressing the memory. But, you know, things can happen. Things happen, you know. So I think it's really crucial to do what you're doing, and then also worst case scenario, best case scenario when you're talking about the deficit. I'm sure you'll do that anyway. The other thing I want to say is I really look forward to receiving the memo from Community Development about possible tenant protections. As I recall, May 17th is the date that we're anticipating getting it. I think at that time we may be able to be better prepared to look at what can be done as we approach the June 4th budget meeting, and perhaps there will be ways that we can improve the situation in such a way that it fits into what we're doing already. But I do have to say that the housing, the condition of our housing stock is getting worse year after year if we don't start addressing this you know, the tenant protections, and also just if you look at building more housing, building new housing, that's great, but the old housing, some of it is just really falling apart, and so we need to also address that for the sake of our residents. So yeah, and I just want to commend staff again for doing all this great work. It's really important. Thanks.
Well, thank you. My colleagues have said most of it, so I'll try to keep mine brief. I do appreciate also Councilmember Marks sharing right on page 317 for anyone who's watching the budget where we talk about the forecasting that Financial Director Jackson mentioned earlier, which is where we find our forecasts and our potential losses in the future. Really looking at what does that mean? What are the causes? How does that come about? That'll be really helpful for the general community. I know we spend lots of time asking lots of questions ahead of time, but and I really also appreciate all the amount of work we already talked about around housing, because I do think that if we can figure out ways to be a little more proactive in helping our community members live in a safe community when it comes to enforcement of their housing conditions, I think that's really important. And obviously that goes back to the education that we're already doing and can do more of. And it goes back to when someone is financially struggling, the last thing they're gonna do is reach out to us and say, I'm living in bad conditions because they don't want to lose their home, their housing. Rental is where you can be let go easily. So there's reasons people make up, and whether it's officially okay to do or not, it still happens. And so I just really think that's important that we think about that as the city and our enforcement and our education, what that looks like. So that being said, I am happy to make a motion and move us to receive and file our Q3 and our budget supplement discussion. Councilmember Shoresman?
If we need a second, I'm happy to do that.
Great. Do we need to officially vote on this? I believe we do. Okay, great. No, it's in our little script. That's why I just wanted to make sure. Okay, can we have this vote, City Clerk?
Mayor Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Shoresman?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pease?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. So now we get to the point of liaison reports and communications. I'm going to kick this off because I have,
Madam Mayor, before we leave, before everyone leaves, I just want to respond to Mayor Marks's expectation because I'm not sure we're going to meet that expectation. So I want to reset. I know that community members are eager to see the housing memo, and we are working on that. But given the volume of closed session memoranda and the significance of other things we're working on in our office. Also, my office's absence for our conference and some other obligations this month. I don't expect that that's going to be through our office before the end of the month. You had mentioned May 17th. I don't want to not miss.
Councilmember Marks, former mayor.
I'm sorry.
That date just stuck in my mind, but if it's going to be later, I just hope it can be before June 4th so that when we consider what we're up to on June 4th, we have that information about possible tenant protection improvements. So
we can target that date.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of very significant matters that we're trying to bring forward to you.
No kidding.
But we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Thank you. So liaison reports and communications, I'm going to go ahead and go first because I have some things that are kind of in depth. So thank you to the city. I was able to go to the League of Cities Leaders Summit April 17th through 18th, as well as the California Cities or Cal Cities board meeting. And so that was paid for both by the city and by Cal Cities. There are a couple items we talked about in the board meeting that I just thought I would at least put it here on the record so that we all know. We had discussions around AB 252, which is around fossil fuel divestment of investing for CalPERS. In the end, we did not support it as a board. There were 13 of us that voted to support AB 252 with a suggestion of a timeline extension because the timeline was way too short on this bill. But the concept of wanting to divest from fossil fuels in the long term was something we wanted to support. But the reality is we have fiduciary duty to make sure the CalPERS money comes through. And as you can obviously see from what we just discussed earlier, CalPERS isn't coming through with all of their money in their investment so far. So in the end, though, because of that fiduciary duty, Cal Cities Board did vote to not support AB 252, but I just wanted you to know about that. Simultaneously, we received some additional information from CalPERS, and they shared that they are hoping to invest $100 billion in climate action funds. So they have already spent $47.3 billion investments in the most recent past, and they are trying to make investments in companies who will help make climate action better. Then also, we voted to support AB 2943, which is about retail theft and having more enforcement. And lastly, for AB 2785, there was a lot of conversation around land use concerns and local control. So I just encourage you to look at that. There was a lot of conversation around reproductive rights being treated, reproductive right clinics being treated as a ministerial vote from ministerial action from Community Development Department in all of the cities. And there was a lot of challenges around the bill because the bill kept referring to the reproductive right clinic as a community health clinic, and there was a lot of confusion around that because there are very specific rules around a community health clinic that wasn't matching in the bill. So it wasn't as though that the board did not support reproductive rights, but did not support the unclear bill language that was there. So I just wanted to share that with you because usually we don't get into this kind of detail around bills, and I wanted you to know about that.
Mayor, I would add with that latter bill, there were also some real land use term inconsistencies that were problematic, as well as local control concerns related to proximity to other uses and just the appropriateness of health clinics generally in certain areas.
Yes, thank you so much. And then also, obviously, we are in Bike Month, so was really happy to be able to go to the Hub on May 1st, where Bike Month was kicked off, and in that was able to borrow a bike. So I've been able to commute to work 2 times this week, which is kind of wild. I have to give it back, of course, on Wednesday, but it's been really nice, and I'm just thankful to the Hub for letting me borrow that. I also happen to be a AAA member, the Automobile Club of America, or whatever that last A stands for. Anyway, and in the Westways magazine, I normally am not an advertiser of other magazines, but they highlighted the Central Coast. So there were a couple things I wanted to highlight today. Our downtown Slow Farmers Market, Mistura and Nate's on Marsh were all highlighted along with other restaurants up and down the coast. And our very own Slow City Farm, Cultivating Community, a whole article written up about us that is shared throughout California. So just wanted to highlight that, and I hope, Councilmember Marks, that you will share that with Mr. Stephen Marks as well.
Okay.
Councilmember Francis.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a few weeks since we were here. So on the 17th of last month, there was the Better Together Luncheon. It's co-sponsored with the NAACP and the Church of Latter-day Saints, and they bring together all of these different nonprofits and have an opportunity to get to network and get to know everybody, and that was a really lovely event. Also had the opportunity on the 18th to attend the SCLC meeting where we did a lot of debrief on the St. Fratty's Day and started to brainstorm around how we can address the event next year. That same day, I was also attended CapSlow board meeting, and item of local interest, we approved new funding for youth prevention and early intervention for youth mental health, which was great. On the 25th, I got a chance to go to the Nacimiento Commission, where we approved the new budget, and we're starting to make some real progress on the pipeline repairs, both temporary and permanent design coming along. So that's great. We can get that pipeline back on. That same night, I attended the Creative Writing Awards at SLO High. This is an entirely student-run project where they, as high schoolers, go out to all of the elementary and middle schools, and they have students submitting writing under different themes. This year was fantasy, and it was just really great to see all of the elementary and middle and high school students that participated, and they did just such a lovely job. On the 26th, SLO City held their volunteer appreciation breakfast, and it was a lovely event. Got to attend with the mayor and appreciate all of our volunteers, our new volunteer program. It was just lovely to see everybody come out at the Jack House. And then the Film Fest. We have a lot that's happened this past month. We had the Film Fest. What a great event this year. It's always wonderful, but it was really cool, the 30th anniversary, to get a chance to come out and see some of the different films and events that they put on. And I think that wraps it up for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shoresman.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to keep it short and just hit the highlights. But it has been a busy couple of weeks for sure since our last meeting. I too, along with the mayor, attended the Cal Cities Leaders Summit, and we had the opportunity to meet with some of our local legislators and put in an extra plug for some things that we really need, both statewide and locally. One in particular that we were advocating for was ongoing funding from the state level for homelessness because we have all these great programs in our jurisdictions and often insecure methods of how they are going to continue. So that was one of the big things that we were pushing for at that summit. Also, Earth Day happened and was a great event out at Laguna Lake Park, and coincidentally on the same day that Growing Grounds was celebrating their 40th anniversary. So I attended that and presented them a certificate and lots of great stories, and just such a Transitions Mental Health Association has been such a leader in social enterprise in our community, as well as assisting people with mental illness. And so it was a really heartwarming celebration that day. And then lots of stuff going on in homelessness. We had a big special Homeless Services Oversight Council meeting in April to award funds to all of our homeless services providers. And we had speaking of need for ongoing funding, we had $20 million of requests and $5 million to give away. So that was a very, very difficult meeting that everybody walked away from, I think, feeling just a little bit disappointed. But we did what we could, and there will luckily be a little bit more money coming down the pike in the next 6 to 8 months. And then I attended the Welcome Home Village meeting along with many of our city department heads at the Renovate Church, as the county provided a lot of detailed information about what that will mean to the Johnson Avenue neighborhood and all of the entities that are in that surrounding area, and lots of questions from community members. So that's where I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, I had the opportunity to attend the Cal CCA conference. This is a conference of all of the community choice aggregates like Central Coast Community Energy, 3CE, and there are 10 of them in the state, covering a vast amount of territory and a huge number of people. This was paid for by 3CE, and it was really an incredible experience to just, everything is in such flux in this area of energy and fighting climate change that there's just an incredible number of different kinds of projects going in all different directions. But what was wonderful is that people were able to really communicate with each other, and I think that our local 3CE staff came in with a lot of great ideas. I did want to mention that 3CE has purchased property on Palm Street across from the courthouse. I don't know if so they actually did it, they're renovating it, and soon there will be a presence in the downtown. So we're looking forward to that. That was April 16th to 18th. And we all went to Derek Johnson's farewell on the 23rd at the Jack House. Forgot about that. And then I went to the crime victims support event on the 25th of April. And this was actually, it was kind of like a conference for all the people locally who are supporting the victims of crime, put on by the DA's office and the probation department. And it was really moving, was really good. On the 26th, I attended the Integrated Waste Management Executive Committee, and wanted to just share with you that tomorrow, actually, we're having a meeting, and among the other things we're doing is the IWMA got a grant of $1.5 million, and that it's for support and enforcement of the organic waste recycling, SB 1383, that ordinance. And the first grant that actually is on the agenda for tomorrow, I'm going to vote yes, is for the city of San Luis Obispo to get $10,000, and it goes along with the big belly garbage things, only to have a third one for organic waste in our facility. So it would be in like City Hall, but probably also in the parking structures. I don't know exactly where it's going to be. The other good news is that I told you earlier that we reduced the solid waste management fee from 5.4% to 4.4%. And now with this new budget that we're looking at again tomorrow, the key budget assumption is that it's going to be further reduced from 4.4% to 3.2%. And the reason that we're doing that, this solid waste management fee is what funds IWMA. And the reason that we are able to reduce it is that the unincorporated county has rejoined the JPA, and we don't want to over-realize revenue. We just want to keep things as thrifty for the general public as we can, and at the same time do what we have to do. On the 30th of April, I went to the advisory body training session, which was great. It was really good, very well done, city clerk and city attorney, and I think everybody there was excited to learn all about that. And then on the, also on that same day, I went to the Cal Poly Awards, Community Service Awards ceremony, and I nominated Aaron Pierce, who's a math professor, who's the one who got the grant for the College Core program, which is housed in our county in Cuesta College and Cal Poly. And they've supplied all of these wonderful volunteers for the Slow Climate Coalition, but also for City Farm Slow. They took 20 of them, and I think partially because of that, City Farm Slow was named Cal Poly's Community Partner of the Year by President Armstrong. So that was wonderful. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pease.
Just one big one, which is that SLOCOG met on May 1st and considered feedback about the potential supplemental funding, Local Roads First, and although the polling results were pretty good, there was a decision that there were too many barriers working against it, primarily that the other cities don't support it. And so, and they would support it long-term potentially, but not this year because they're going after their own local sales tax and they were concerned about the conflicts. And so the staff recommendation actually was not to continue with the November 2024 ballot. So, so that one's not coming back to us. It's not going on the ballot. And we learned a lot. There was good discussion. I think there's a lot of interest and, dare I say, commitment to having it in November of 2026. And, you know, full speed ahead, right? It starts now, and then allocating. I think we're going to get more consultant time, or anyway, more community involvement, et cetera. So disappointing in that we agree that's a great thing, but I think that was the right choice in the moment. So that was mine.
Awesome. A lot of things going on, that's for sure. And I did forget, too, to mention the Whale Rock Commission. Your Nasi reminded me of that. We had that last week. So it was nice to meet the new member from CMC. I don't remember his official title, but Mr. Martinez. So anyway, really exciting, and always great to see that our allotments are well at 100%, and we're still seeing spillover, and so it's really good. Well, we'll meet again next Tuesday to talk about only one thing, parking, on May 14th at 5:30 right here in the chambers. And then we'll come back for our regularly scheduled meeting on May 21st at 5:30. Thank you so much and have a good night.